Hello everyone, welcome to What If Issei Killed Trihexa and Got Teleported to RWBY movie. Before we start, please go support Draconarius23 for writing that awesome fanfic. This is the translated version I made. There will be some mistaken character's gender, but of course Issei is a male. AU Trihexa managed to defeat all the factions, thus achieving their imminent extinction. Issei Haidu, the Sekiryuutei, Op-Eye Dragon, and now former pillar of the factions, uses a power that costs him his life, but manages to kill the beast. Exhausted and on the verge of death, and before Great Red could attempt to rescue him, he is taken to another universe by an entity that needs help and witnessed his great feat. The entity asks for your help and explains that a force older than the Brothers of Light and Darkness will bring destruction and desolation to the world of Remnant, and that it needs your help to prevent this catastrophe. Now Issei will begin a new mission, a mission to save his new world, a place where he will meet new loves and new friends, and a world where he will uphold the name of the Sekiryuutei. Clarifications. 1. Issei will be taken to Remnant by someone after an imminent defeat against Trihexa. 2. He will appear a few years before the canon and will meet several characters from before. 3. Issei will have semblance, which I will show in a technical sheet that I will create for Issei. 4. Issei's power level in relation to RWBY will be too high, but he will know how to contain himself, unlike a certain bald guy. 5. Issei will gain abilities to avoid using boosted gear constantly, including a fighting style from a pirate world, an ability that only a few in that pirate world can use if they train, and something like Zoro's style, but not much, maybe Notoru. 6. Salem will not be evil, not even close. I will explain why in the future. She also had no relationship with Ozma, for those who saw the explanation of Ozpin's secret in Volume 6. She will be able to change into her human form, so to speak, and have her Grim form together. I will also say that she will not be the queen of the Grim, but she will control a large number of them in the kingdom of the god of darkness. 8. Gremory's industries will also appear in Remnant. It will be the same as the Schnee company, to screw over Jax for being a son of a bitch along with his bratty son. It will be a rival of the company to screw things up even more. 9. Since Salem won't be the main enemy, I have something planned with the next characters I'll release from DC, as I didn't want to release any from Marvel, unless a fan tells me which Marvel characters could represent light and darkness. First we have the entity. This being will be the true creator of the world of Remnant. His power would be on a scale greater than the two Celestials, Drake and Albion, but better than Office, at 100%, but even so, he would be stronger than Issei in his DXD form. Although with the new Oxa form, I don't know how strong he would be, although I doubt he would be stronger than the DXD form, which is like a copy of Goku's SSJ-10.5, which he can only use for a short period of time, but with some setback. Necron will be next. The Lord of the Dead and the representation of anti-life, who here will be like a destruction god and counterpart of the entity, both possess the same power, being even superior to Issei in his DXD form, and this lord will be the reason why Issei is taken to Remnant. He will want to put an end to the creation of his counterpart, but Issei will need power to defeat him. I included both of them because I felt it was necessary to have two entities besides the gods of light and darkness, and thus have some backstory beyond Volume 3, which, as anyone who's seen RWBY knows, is where the Salem storyline, the maidens, and the relics begin. These won't be the main focus of this fic, since only Jin's magic lamp is known so far. Well, now that this point is clear, you'll know that I'll be following the canon of the first 3 volumes, which would be like the beginning, giving hints of what the future arc after Volume 3 would be like. I'll also include some chapters from the RWBY Chibi when I got stuck, chapters that feature Issei, of course. I'll also tell you that in this fic, besides Issei, there will be 2 or 3 other dragons who will be part of Necron's allies. Some of you will know them, and if you guess who they are, I'll give you this. I said, taking out some chocolate chip cookies that I stole from Ruby's special jar. They were hard to get, and they'll be a good prize. Anyway, I've gotten off track. To finish this up, I'm planning the final arc, which will be tied to Issei's beginnings in Remnant, as well as Issei's life before going to Beacon, where he'll meet various characters while investigating in Remnant. Oh, right, one more thing. There will be several femmes. 1. Sorry to anyone who doesn't want to read it, but I'll be writing other RWBY fics with Ox and without femmes in some cases. Okay, I'm done. I'll say goodbye now, and I'll probably upload Issei's character sheet when I finish fixing a few things. See you later, friends. Issei Gremory Haidu, updated. This will be Issei's technical sheet. I will update it as I remember or see what to put in it, or as the story progresses. Age: 17 years, appearance: 29 years, actual. Appearance: it will be his normal clothes, only with a white t-shirt covering his entire torso and chest. This will be his hunter's outfit. Soul badge: I guilty gear. Personality: after losing his loved ones, he changed somewhat, becoming truly serious when the situation demands it and calmer in high-risk situations. He remains kind and affectionate with his family, putting himself in danger rather than risk losing anyone else. He can also be somewhat explosive if provoked too much, but he doesn't let it get the better of him. He's still the same pervert, but now more subdued. With girls, he's attentive and calm, but he doesn't let them bother him, since he doesn't let them boss him around. He's also a gentleman and cares about the girl's well-being. He's also less dense when it comes to emotions. He likes tranquility, his friends, his girls, when the harem starts of course, good food, it doesn't matter what it is, as long as it tastes good it will be welcome, fighting, when he becomes a full dragon, but not as much as Vale, music, video games, his guitar, a gift from his girls before the incident. He dislikes idiots, those who disturb his peace, those who hate Franz, Carden, Ironwood and his stupid Nick Fury-style justice, criminals, Grims. Abilities. Immense strength. Immense resistance. Immense durability. Immense speed. Promotion, still retains the pieces. High-level demonic energy, retains that trait. Manipulation of the flow of time, by minutes depending on the affected area. Master of hand-to-hand combat. Expert tactician. Master swordsman. Master of firearms. Great fire resistance. Pyrokinesis, total control of fire. Dragon install. A form that manifests all of Issei's dragon energy. His physical abilities increase drastically for 5 minutes, then leave his body extremely exhausted. Equipment. Boosted gear and all its states. He can use the Juggernaut drive, giving dragon energy to prevent him from dying. Ascalon. Excalibur original. Ex-Durandal. Ragnarok sword, a sword created as a last resort by Odin himself, using Yggdrasil as its main source, thus obtaining this god slayer sword, but even so, it could not severely damage Trihexa. Junkyard Dog Mk3. Helsing ARM 454 Castle Auto. Helsing Arms 13mm Autocannon Anti-Monster Jackal. Mjolnir, DXD. Long-Ina Spear, blocked. Semblance, penetrate. This ability is now passive. He can use it without even activating boosted gear, but it has the drawback of being limited to 3 uses per day, power of destruction. He obtained it through the great bond he once shared with his deceased Rias Gremory, Hockey. Manifest. They know what it is. He will have all 3 types. Prologue, the beginning of the end. Prologue. Ruins of Kuo. They say the end comes in the least expected way. Braiaya. A roar was heard in the distance. The quiet day can turn into a disaster in seconds. Boost, 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 boost. Several boosts could be heard from the same direction as the roar. The end of all life came suddenly, brought about by a beast whose very existence is the apocalypse itself. Long-Ina Smasher, a torrent of green energy shot out against the grey sky, illuminating it. What really happened? Trihexa. That's what happened. When Rissavam, in his foolish desire to dominate everything, released the beast from its confinement. God had imprisoned it long ago for a reason, but he still released it, committing his greatest and final mistake in this world. After freeing Trihexa, it quickly attacked Lucifer, killing him along with Euclid and his few remaining followers. The beast was out of control and at full power. Issei took office out of the area, sending her to the dimensional rift along with Lilith, with ruler's help to ensure their safety, since both, despite being stronger than everyone else, were not stronger than Trihexa. Death was all they saw. One by one they fell. Gregory, the sky, the underworld, Asgard, all the pantheons were cursed. Friends, family, comrades, every single one died in the battle. Vale Lucifer defended the one he loved until the very end, Lavinia Renai, falling but not before fighting for it. Saji defended his friends and loved ones with everything he had. Sererg, Tobio, Cao, Razor. All died for their comrades, friends, family, women. Serzichas, Seraphol, Ajuka, Falbium, defended the underworld and their families to the very end. Azazel, Penemu, Barakiel, Shamhaza and the rest of cadres defended Gregory. Michael, Gabriel, Metatron, and the other archangels fought for heaven. Odin, Thor, Vidar, Gondel, Brunhild, along with the other gods and demigods, defended Asgard. Hanan, Tiamat, Yulong, Crom Cruach, and all the dragons fought for their own. They all fought until the end. The Sekiryuutei Haidu Issei. He had lost them. First his parents, and then his daughters. His parents were killed by Trihexa when it attacked a cruise ship traveling across the Atlantic Ocean. And his girls died trying to defend him. Heartbroken, he now entered a state that had almost killed him the first time. Braiaya. Roared the Sekiryuutei in rage. The Juggernaut drive was back and attacking Trihexa with hatred and rage. The beast of the apocalypse didn't need much to repel Issei in his enraged state, sending him crashing back to the ground, creating several craters from the impact. Issei stood up again and roared, unleashing even more power. And he launched another attack against Trihexa. Partner, snap out of it, you have to stop. You're causing yourself irreparable damage. Drake shouted, distressed to see his partner in that state, still uselessly launching himself against Trihexa. You killed them, I'll kill you, Issei said violently, releasing energy from his body. Starting to charge like this, several boosts to launch another attack. The energy surge struck Trihexa, who was completely unaffected as he was far superior to Issei. Already bored, he launched an attack at Issei, causing him to lose his juggernaut form and sending him crashing to the ground, creating a large crater from the impact. Ugh. He complained of the pain that ended up breaking several bones in his body. Companion, we must surrender, it's impossible, Drake said, facing the harsh reality. And no, I have to avenge them all. Issei screamed, still on the ground. He pounded the ground in frustration, weeping with anger and sadness. He watched as Trihexa slowly retreated, making it clear that it wasn't worth his while. Issei glared at the creature that had taken everything from him in this world. Damn it, that bastard is getting away, damn it. Issei yelled. Drake felt sad for his companion. The red dragon knew what it was like to lose everything. He remained silent for a moment, thinking of something, until he remembered a way to be able to end Trihexa, which he hadn't told him because he thought that total annihilation would never happen. Letting out a long sigh, Drake spoke. There is a way to defeat Trihexa, Drake said, thinking how bad this way would turn out. What is it? Tell me, please. I don't care what it is, as long as I make him pay for what he did, Issei said desperately. Ah, I knew you'd say that. There is a very dangerous way, a forbidden technique that, in exchange for colossal power, comes at a very high price. Life, Drake said. Issei remained silent and Drake continued, years ago, when Albion and I fought, we destroyed a dragon nest. They were very weak, but even so, a furious dragon decided to use this technique to literally match our power and even surpass one of us by one. But the dragon died minutes after using it. This technique is something that was forbidden and that no dragon has ever used out of pride. The fall of the dragon, the technique that takes your life in exchange for colossal power, Drake explained. The fall of the dragon, what are our chances of winning if we use that technique? Issei asked, determined to use it. Drake let out another sigh. We will be able to match Trihexa in power, since your body that great red created and the energy that office put inside you, along with the fact that I will put my soul on the line, will give us the opportunity to reach and even surpass Trihexa for a short time, that we will use to kill that monster, said Drake, and Issei nodded. Well, let's do it. This will be the last thing this dying world sees about Trihexa, its fall at the hands of the Sekiryuutei, Issei said, struggling to his feet. It's a shame no one's watching this, but oh well, we have to do it, Drake said. Issei, now on his feet, saw the direction the beast had gone, and after struggling out of the crater, he decided it was time to end this once and for all. So how do we start? Issei asked. Leave that to me, you'll only feel unbearable pain running through your body when the power flows through it, Drake said, and Issei nodded. A few seconds later Issei felt it. Arg. A brutal power began to flow through his veins, his entire being radiating an overwhelming force that caught Trihexa's attention. Issei's muscles tensed, his skin turned reddish, the veins on his forehead bulged, and his eyes turned white. A green aura surrounded him, signaling the first stage of the fall of the dragon. This power, Issei said, resisting the pain his body felt. Hang on, partner, this is just the beginning, the worst is yet to come, so let's go against that beast. Said Drake, and Issei nodded. Issei ran with overwhelming speed towards Trihexa, catching up to the beast, which was unable to react to what followed. Take this. Issei shouted, preparing a punch. It hit squarely in the central head of the beast, which roared in pain, sending Trihexa crashing to the ground and releasing a cloud of dust with the impact. The furious beast lunged at Issei, who dodged with his new speed. Issei then backed away after striking Trihexa again, stunning the beast. Ugh. This hurts. He complained of the pain his body felt when he felt a sharp pain in his heart. Ugh, what's happening to me? Issei asked. These are the consequences of the technique. Your heart will be affected until the very end when it stops and everything is over. But thanks to your heart being different, you've been able to endure so much, since at this point you would be dead, Drake explained to Issei, who was surprised but still decided to continue. Well, I expected that, but I'd like us to finish this quickly, Issei said. Alright, I'll release the final stage of the technique, so I hope you can endure all the pain, Drake said. Alright, let's go. Issei shouted, starting to run towards the newly repaired Trihexa. Sure, partner, I'll show you an image of what you'll have to do to fully activate the final stage, Drake said, and Issei nodded. He ran swiftly toward the beast that awaited him with its gigantic hands, ready to strike. Issei ran and, placing his thumb on his heart, unleashed his full power. An immense pressure filled the air. Had any spectators been present, they would have been utterly bewildered by what they witnessed. A crimson aura enveloped Issei, his skin turned reddish-gray, his hair the color of his deceased beloved, his eyes white, and a powerful force surged through him, reaching as far as Trihexa. The fall of the dragon in all its splendor, a forbidden power that endowed any dragon that used it with immense power, and that was now at the level of the apocalyptic beast. Their fists collided, creating a powerful shockwave that destroyed several surrounding buildings. Issei and Trihexa, which transformed into a smaller form while retaining its original appearance, both gave their all as they wreaked havoc, though that mattered little when your enemy was right in front of you. Ignoring all that, they continued fighting. Everything seemed to be going well for Issei, but the reality was that his power diminished with each blow he delivered, hinting at his fateful end. Damn it, I need to hurry and finish him off, Issei thought as several images flashed through his mind. Issei decided to follow Drake's instructions and from the sky punched Trihexa, sending it crashing to the ground with a gust of wind that created a large cloud of dust and a crater where Trihexa had been. Just as Issei was about to attack again. His bone cracked from the pressure of the attack. Issei landed a considerable distance from Trihexa, his power already diminished. He stood on the ground, exhausted, and looked at Trihexa, who, despite being injured for the first time, still had strength as he was getting up from where he was. Damn, that bastard is still standing. Issei said between breaths, his body felt like shit and his heart was beating less, his tiredness was showing, and he no longer knew how to end this. Well, mate, there's still one last chance to end this, Drake said. Tell me which one, because I don't know how much longer I'll be standing, Issei said. Let me show you. Drake sent him an image that made Issei smile. We have to try it now, Issei said. I'll help you, Drake said. So Issei took advantage while Trihexa was still stunned by the blow and got into a running position and began to emanate a great amount of power that caught Trihexa's attention, who felt that Issei's power far surpassed him, and when he looked where Issei was, what he saw surprised him for the first time in history. An explosion of power, crimson as blood, unleashing a gigantic pressure throughout the city, which witnessed what for many was impossible until that moment. Burning veins, burning like the conviction he had to avenge his loved ones, his heart giving its all to resist and unleashing a greater power that manifested itself in the same color as the hair of that girl he still longed for in his final moments. The crimson dragon roared with power, making everything around it tremble. Seki, Issei said, preparing his final attack. Trihexa saw this and prepared to block it. RWBY. And with that, he launched himself at Trihexa in a charge, enveloped in a crimson oriental dragon that roared with power. The race left a trail of destruction in its wake. Buildings collapsed in its path, and Trihexa watched with wide eyes what was happening, only one word coming to mind. Impossible. Issei Nocturno. The brunette shouted, unleashing a power-infused parry against Trihexa's chest. The attack was devastating, an attack that surpassed Trihexa and was felt in all the realms, even in the dimensional rift, alerting the three dragons who thought they had already stopped Trihexa. Dimensional rift. With Red, Office and Lilith. The three of them felt the power that had literally torn the fabric of space-time for a moment, something impressive for any mortal being. Office, who is above the head of DXD, speaks. What do you think that was, Red? She asked, receiving a growl from the dragon. Don't you know? Do you think it's all over? Do you think they managed to seal Trihexa? She asked, though Red took longer to answer. What's wrong? Why aren't you answering? Office asked until Red growled, which shocked Office. This Office knows more about feelings thanks to Issei and his girl's efforts to teach her, and made her very worried. Don't you sense any energy on Earth? Office asked, and Red growled again. No, it can't be. Take us back. I have to see if Issei and the others are alright. Office shouted, drawing Lilith's attention. Dear Lilith sees Office as her older sister. Nissan, what's wrong? Lilith asked. Office, not wanting to worry Lilith, decided to lie to her. Nothing, Lilith, it's just that we have to go back, but don't worry, okay? Office said with a smile that Lilith swallowed. So we'll see Ice and the others again? Lilith asked, and Office smiled bitterly as she stroked her head. Yes, we will, she said, and put Lilith to sleep with magic. We have to go back to see what happened, Office said, and Red grunted in agreement. They continued along the rift until Red opened a portal to the dead Earth. To their unpleasant surprise, they appeared near Kuo, where the great burst of power had last been felt. It can't be. Office cried, watching the earth crack, signifying that after the death of all the gods, the earth was in its final moments. No, they're all dead, she said, sensing no life force anywhere. Ice. She cried, feeling the minuscule life force emanating from Issei, indicating his imminent end. Come on, Red, he's close. Office shouted, flying towards Issei, but arriving too late. She saw Issei's body slowly dissolving into ashes. No Ice. She cried, watching Issei vanish until she saw one last smile directed at her before he disappeared into ashes. Nuo, Ice. Office screamed as she watched her first friend and first love disappear. Moments before. But Issei. There he was, lying a few meters from Trihexa's corpse. Issei was emitting steam and black marks where those bright veins once were, his body grey like that of a dead man and his wide eyes without any trace of life. And that's how it ends, huh? Issei said to Drake. Yes, Drake replied. It was good while it lasted, Issei said. You know, despite everything and that op-eye dragon thing, I never had as much fun as I did with you. You were the first wielder who didn't see me as a weapon and the first to go very far, and in my entire existence I am satisfied, Drake said with tears falling from his eyes. Yeah, I thought my life would be boring, girls would hate me for being a pervert, I'd get expelled, live alone and a virgin for the rest of my life, but no, discovering the supernatural world was the best thing that ever happened to me, even though I died to learn about it. I met wonderful people, I met Rias and the others, I met idiots and made many enemies. I had wonderful parents, thanks to Red, I had this strong body, from my friends, I gained the conviction to protect. From my rivals I learned the pain of defeat, and from you, I gained a friend and partner who helped me through those difficult times until the very end, and like you, I am satisfied, Issei said, tears streaming down his face. At that moment, the earth began to tremble, signaling the end. Heh, I never thought I'd witness this, Issei said. Me neither, the beginning of the end, you know, I imagined it would be different, but well, this is goodbye, mate, Drake said. It's not goodbye, it's see you later. After all, the afterlife awaits us if such a thing even exists, Issei thought, and Drake chuckled. Then his body began to turn to ash, signaling that it was time. Heh, I feel like Spider-Man in Infinity War, Issei said. It's a shame Mr. Stark isn't here, Drake joked. Just then they heard Office's screams. Office, here, I'm glad you're alright, Issei thought, smiling at her one last time as he vanished into ashes. We'll be together soon, girls, Issei said, and before disappearing, an image flashed through his mind, causing a tear to escape his eye, an image he would remember even in death. Rias. And with that, his body vanished from the world, the last Sekiryuutei to ever see this world, the op-eye dragon to the children, and the strongest pawn of all. Here, Issei is already engaged to Rias Gremory, Akeno Himejima, Asia Argento, Kaneko Taojo, Zenobia Quarta, Irina Shido, Rossweisse, Kuroka Hellcat, and Ravel Phoenix, the pillar of the factions, and the most unpredictable Sekiryuutei in all of history. Brad took Office out of this dying place, knowing that Earth was going to explode and turn into cosmic dust, so he returned to the dimensional rift to think of a way to calm Office down. Unknown location. Was I supposed to die? Issei wondered, getting up from the ground and staring at a blank space. Drake, is he there? Issei asked as the boosted gear materialized. Yes, friend, I'm just as confused as you are, we were supposed to die, said Drake. What happened? Issei asked. I can answer that for you, someone said in front of Issei. Issei looked at him and was surprised since he hadn't been there before. And who are you? Issei asked, making the stranger smile. What will happen now? Who is that guy? Why did he bring them to that place? Will Rambo? Last blood be good? We'll find out in the next chapter XD. End of prologue. Chapter 0, My new mission, new world and the passing of the years. Previously in Sekiryuutei of Remnant. The imminent destruction of the world was caused by Trihexa, who killed all supernatural beings, plunging the world into chaos and its imminent end. Having lost everything, Issei decided to play one last ace that Drake told him about, the Fall of the Dragon, a technique that would grant him the power to kill Trihexa by taking Drake's power, along with the abilities that were given to Issei to a point superior to the beast. He defeated the beast at a great cost. His death. Using the Fall of the Dragon was a double-edged sword that ultimately granted him immense power in exchange for his life, which, though strong, no longer mattered to him. After Trihexa's defeat, Issei dies, or so it was expected, since he was taken to a different plane while Earth witnessed its end. Where am I? I could answer that for you. Who are you? Now Issei was facing someone. Who is it? Well, now we'll find out. Chapter 0. Empty space. Let me introduce myself, young Issei. My name is the Presence, and I've pulled you from your dying world to ask you a favor, said an elderly man in a suit and hat, holding a sphere of light and an umbrella. I know this must be very shocking for you. I mean, you gave your life to kill that creature, which is admirable despite the precarious situation of your world. But what I'm getting at is, the favor I want to ask of you is one that will define the survival of another world, different from yours. A world that is under the care of 2 of my children, who haven't learned anything. To prevent their conflicts from escalating, I decided to take away a large part of their original powers. But the problem lies with the younger of the 2, someone who has been corrupted by the power of death and who wants to destroy his older brother's creations, Presence explained to the brunette, who was simply looking at the man, listening attentively. Well, according to what he tells me, he wants me to go to the world that your eldest son apparently created to prevent the youngest from killing his creations, which are the humans, Issei said. Indeed, the man confirmed. And to avoid that, you decided to bring me here to help? Issei asked. Correct, said Presence. Okay, I'd like to help, but it wouldn't be of any use. As you can see, I couldn't do anything before using that deadly technique. So, what makes you think I can stop two gods who seem stronger than me or someone from my world? Haven't you considered that? What chance do I have against someone who creates worlds, living beings, and someone who seems to be the complete opposite? Issei asked seriously, looking at the man who just smiled. They are no longer what they once were. As I said, I took away a large part of their powers. Of course, they are still stronger than you, but you're forgetting something. You have the potential to grow because your body is made of a dimensional being that is incredibly powerful. You also possess infinite energy, thanks to the power of Uroburo's office. Of course, I will help you by giving you powers that link you to your former world, the man said, placing his hand in front of him. His palm revealed several colored spheres. Crimson, yellow, green, blue, silver, black, white, purple, orange, and a multicolored one. These orbs represent the powers or abilities of several people close to you. This represents the bond you once had with them and will show that even though they are not near you, they will always support you, especially this sphere, he said, pointing to the crimson sphere that pulsed as it approached Issei. This is the connection between Rias Gremory and you, the love you both felt, the power she gave you. Lega, the power of the destruction of her family, the Gremories, this is the love she has for you, which from the other side helps you and will accompany you for the rest of your life, the man said. Issei looked at the crimson sphere that approached, and the brown-haired boy decided to hold it in his hands, feeling a very warm sensation when he held it. A tear fell from his left eye as he felt a hand on his. He looked at the figure of Rias who smiled at him with love, an illusion that disappeared when the sphere entered him, feeling a current of power course through his being. It seems this bond you both share is so strong that it makes the power accept you quickly, the man said. Alright, I'll help, but tell me what I have to do to stop what threatens that world, Issei said resolutely, knowing he could still count on his loved ones and comrades despite his absence. The present smiled as the other spheres entered the brunette's body, causing him to feel a surge of power within him. Alright, first I'll explain what you've just obtained first, there's the power to manipulate holy lightning like a Keno Himejima. Second, the great combined strength of Kaneko Taojo and Seraired Bale. Third, great swordsmanship from Zenobia Quarta, Irina Shido, Kibayudo, and Arthur Pendragon. Fifth, great magic control like Lafay Pendragon and Rossweisse. The ability to stop time for a period of time, thanks to Gaspar Vladi's sacred gear. Very high fire manipulation like Ravel Phoenix and Razor Phoenix. And last but not least, the manifestation of Rias Gremory's destructive power. You'll also have Ascalon, the original Excalibur along with Ex Durandal, the copy of Mjolnir, and the Ragnarok sword. You'll also have Longinus, but I'll let you unlock that one later because of its great power. The presence listed everything Issei possessed, I'll update the stats later. Issei, for his part, was surprised by everything. What I would have. Wow, I'm surprised by everything you just said about my new abilities, the brunette said to the man, who smiled. You'll need extra strength to win now, I'll explain where you'll go, said the man, showing an image of a planet very different from his own. This is Remnant. Its name comes from the fact that it's the remnant of a catastrophe that happened thousands of years ago. That's where you'll go now, there are two races in that world. Humans, as you obviously know, and the Faunus. They're like yokai, but without being supernatural, although they have better senses than a common human, like night vision and so on. They're currently discriminated against by many humans, although of course, there are those who aren't racist and accept the Faunus as the most normal thing in the world. Moving on, that's where my two sons live, although one is sealed away and the other exists on a different plane from the mortal one. My eldest son has twin sons, two gods who represent light and darkness. Both disappeared years ago due to the same catastrophe that resulted in the broken moon, he explained, pointing to the moon, which had a shattered section with some pieces still floating around. Issei listened attentively to everything the present said. There were also beings that my youngest son created, but only two could to give you trouble, or rather, one since the other died years ago at the hands of a powerful hero. Well, one was Ancalagon the Black, a dragon of dark nature and massive size. He was bigger than Drake and Albion combined. But as I said, Ancalagon died at the hands of a hero thousands of years ago. Second is Agnologia, the dragon of the apocalypse, a dragon of great power that has the ability to absorb magic, though only that. But that doesn't diminish how dangerous he can be. This dragon is contained in a seal placed on him 500 years ago when his egg was about to hatch. Even so, he is strong by nature, but he wouldn't be a problem for Drake if you released him after that. There are small creatures called Grim, which are much weaker than those mentioned before, but with the difference that there are many of them, and they are born spontaneously in various parts of the world of Remnant. They are a collection of the negative energy emitted by most living beings. They are very dangerous, but they have been contained thanks to the hunters and huntresses. Said the man to the chestnut-haired man who had a question. Hunters and huntresses? Asked the chestnut-haired man. Yes, they are humans who possess special abilities, such as running fast, creating copies of themselves, and countless other abilities, all natural. These are called semblances, and there is also a special powder that helps them do what magic can. This powder was given to humans as a means of defense when magic was extinguished in the catastrophe millennia ago. It has served them well in surviving, and although some people with semblances live normal lives, others use their abilities for good as well as for evil, the man explained, and Issei listened attentively so as not to miss any details. Your semblance will be the ability that Drake possessed. Penetrate will be your semblance, although the power of destruction would also count as one. You have a fragment of the divine dividing, right? I'll fix that incompatibility issue you have, so you can access cancel and some lower ranking abilities that divine dividing had, he asked, receiving a nod from Issei. Now he really surprised Issei, but the brown-haired boy didn't interrupt. Now, for your first mission, your objective is to find the runes that are part of the seal of my youngest son, Necron. He showed a picture of a very intimidating giant skeleton. The runes you'll be looking for were placed by the children of Entity, my eldest son. He showed an amorphous white being. Your objective is to find them and see how much power they have. If it's high, he may still be sealed away, but if it's the opposite, there may be little time left before he's freed. Although, there's also the possibility that several of the runes are powerless or destroyed, implying that he can be freed, but with great effort. Even so, that's your mission when you arrive in Remnant. After that, you'll have to manage on your own, Present said. But why can't you do it? I mean, they're your children, Issei asked, to which the man let out a sigh. I knew you'd ask that. The answer is so simple even a child would be surprised. I can't interfere in the mortal world. It's a law imposed upon me eons ago. I know I'm asking a lot and you've just suffered a loss, but I ask you to stop this fight between the two of them. That world will collapse and they'll keep fighting until I'm unfortunately forced to erase this universe, and I don't want to do that. So please stop them, because in the end, all your actions will be rewarded, I assure you, Present said, and Issei sighed and nodded. Alright, I'll do it, just tell me where and when to appear in Remnant, Issei said, and the man smiled. It won't be much, but so you can better control your new abilities, I'll turn you back into a child. You'll have to reactivate the boosted gear so you can improve with it and better understand your new abilities, Present said, placing his hand in Issei's direction, causing his size to shrink until he was a 5-year-old child. Wow, I'm a kid again. He said, impressed to see his small body. Well, young Issei, that's all. We'll meet again in the future, and I hope it will be when you come to tell me about your victory, the man said, and Issei nodded. Yes sir, I'll do my best, Issei said as he began to disappear in a beam of light. Issei blinked, and when he did, behind the man he saw something that brought tears to his eyes. You will always be with me, he whispered, looking at all his friends, loved ones, and parents behind the man. He saw his girls smiling at him with love, his parents with pride, his friends and rivals with brotherly smiles, but Vale didn't just smile with rivalry, he also gave him a thumbs up. Show them the power of a celestial dragon. I hear the voice of my friend rival. Of course, I assure you, Issei said, smiling. Take care Ice Anada darling Ice and Ice kun Ice Naya senpai Ice sama Ice, we love you, Issei heard from his beloved girls, bringing tears to his eyes. And I love you, said Issei. Goodbye son, we are proud of you, his parents said, and Issei smiled as tears fell from his eyes. You are the best parents in the world, despite not being the best son, Issei said, but they shook their heads. You are the best thing that has ever happened to us, and we love you, son, both parents said, and Issei couldn't hold it in any longer and burst into tears. And I love you guys too. Issei shouted as he disappeared from the place, leaving only the man who smiled as he watched the brunette leave. I know you can become strong, young Ice, said the presence, when someone appeared behind him. Oh, it's a pleasure to see you again, said the man. Yes, it was very difficult, but here I am, thank you for giving me that opportunity, a mature-sounding male voice said, and the presence smiled at that. With Issei. On a very distant island south of Sanus. The now small chestnut-haired boy stopped crying, wiped his tears, and looked around. He was near a beach, with a lush forest behind him. Issei gazed at the sea, at the waves that came and went. He contemplated the sea for a few moments, thinking about everything that had happened, how everything he had worked so hard to achieve had been destroyed in just seconds. But then he thought about his new chance at life, which he truly felt he didn't deserve, but it had been given to him anyway, and he wouldn't waste it. So even though they were all gone, he would keep going for them, because for him, loved ones don't die if you don't forget them, and he wouldn't forget them as long as he lived. With a determined look, he decided to take a backpack that the presents had given him, where he kept the things most important to him. From the backpack, he took out a circular silver necklace with dragon head engravings, which had a photograph on it. In that photograph, he and Rias appeared together. That necklace was a gift she had given him on a date before an important event for Issei, a date that ended in a room with them showing how much they loved each other. Of course, Akeno somehow realized it, and well, it ended up becoming a big mess where Issei spent loving his girls until the next day. Remember that this is a DxDAU, and the events up to volume 25 happened, with the only difference being that Trihexa attacked at the beginning of the chestnut-haired boy's third year, just to clarify. He also pulled out a photo album that had several pictures of him and his girls on various dates and moments he considered important, such as the time he won the three-legged competition with Asia, or a picture of Kaneko in Nekomata mode sitting on his lap, him and Akeno dressed as a priestess sitting on the stairs leading to his old residence, Kuroka, and him lying on the sofa watching a movie that the dark-haired girl found interesting, and many more. Surprisingly, his cell phone was there with several of the photos the girl sent him, you know what kind of photos, as well as some other things, such as clothes, a toothbrush, toothpaste that said infinity, some local currency, engravement, a hunting knife, a canteen, and a scroll with detailed information on the history of Remnant from its beginnings to the present day. He really went to the trouble of preparing me for what's coming, Issei said, seeing that the backpack had everything he needed, but he quickly remembered the most important thing. Drag. Issei shouted, looking at the back of his left hand when a green gem appeared. Dude, what happened? Did we survive? Did we kill Trihexa? Are we in limbo? Am I dreaming? Is this real death? Drake said, agitated. First, to answer your questions, they saved us, yes, and it was the most glorious thing we could have achieved in our lives. No, you're not dreaming, and we weren't even talking about it being like this, Issei replied to his friend. Now let me tell you what happened and where we are, and so Issei began to recount everything that had happened from beginning to end, leaving Drake speechless upon learning that there had been a superior being who had saved them from death and what that entailed. And now a new adventure awaits us, in a new world, Issei said. Wow, that's really interesting, buddy, Drake said. But it's still good to be alive, even though I'll never defeat Albion. But that Agnologia really intrigues me. I'd like to give him a beating to see how strong he really is, he said, excited about a future battle with a dragon. But what are we going to do now, old man? He asked Issei. The brown-haired boy used the scroll and opened the map. When he opened it, he saw the continents of Remnant. Well, according to this thing, I didn't know what to call the scroll, we're here, Issei said, pointing to an island far south of the continent of Sanus, several miles from the kingdom of Vale to the north, and also several miles from Menagri Island to the east, although Menagri is closer, Issei said. Well, what will you do now, partner? Drake asked. Issei smiled and looked at the forest behind him. I don't know if you've noticed, but I can't access the boosted gear, Issei said. I did notice, it's a shame, since we were very advanced with the forms of the sacred gear, but I still feel the pawn pieces and one of the king inside you, partner said Drake, and Issei smiled. Yes, you know, although it wasn't in the best way, I managed to activate the boosted gear and even evolve it into the Diabolos god dragon, so if I manage that in just a few months, what's stopping me from doing it again? Issei asked. I don't know, not having Gremory's breasts to surpass you? Drake jokingly asked, making Issei fall to the ground because of it. Good shot, but even though that's true, I can't necessarily use that method now. I'll train to get back to my best form and surpass it, so I can raise the name of the Sekiryuutei high among the hunters. I owe it to you. And if we get rid of Op-Eye Dragon, what do you think, Drake? Issei said when he heard a sob. Drake, are you crying? Issei asked incredulously. It's just that no one had ever cared so much about me, Drake sobbed, and Issei smiled at that. Don't worry, friend, that's all in the past now, Issei said. A very dark one, said Drake. Yes, a dark one, but one that only you and I know about. Now let's go, there's a lot to do and so little time, said Issei. Of course, partner, said Drake. No Drake, no partner, call me Issei, we're friends after all, said Issei, and Drake smiled from inside the boosted gear. Of course, Issei, said Drake, and Issei smiled. Alright, let's go to our new future, Issei said, venturing deeper into the jungle, unaware that a strange specter was watching him from afar. It was very odd, with a black mask on its head with light blue lines and a white body with black protrusions coming out of its shoulders, along with light blue lines running down its back. The creature flew away quickly in an unknown direction. Time skip. -3 years later. And so time passed, friends. Issei quickly set about activating the boosted gear. It took him a few weeks to accomplish this. Since then, Issei trained to at least reach Balance Breaker, which he achieved a month and a half later. He then began durability training to maintain BXB Balance Breaker for short for longer, something that wasn't too difficult for him, and to this day, it's a phase he can maintain for a long time without getting tired or anything. The rest of the time she spent training her new abilities, such as controlling her strength, which, combined with Sekiryuutei's, became immense enough to shatter a large mountain if she didn't hold back. She also gained access to Mjolnir to train in a hammer-based fighting style, though she could actually break legs with it. Then there was External, which she became familiar with, sensing Zenovia's energy when she used it. With it, she could unleash waves of holy energy, and with some of the abilities of Excalibur's fragments, she could become a force to be reckoned with. However, the blades were now useless for separating from External, as she now possessed the original Excalibur. This blade had Ruler's abilities and could create a portal to travel anywhere in this dimension, along with the power to control any creature, including the Grim, though she didn't really need them. Then there was Ragnarok, the sword that Odin's father created millennia ago and left at the roots of Yggdrasil for when something worse than Ragnarok happened. Although the truth is that the sword could be stronger than Excalibur and any other due to its god-slayer nature, Trihexa didn't care and attacked with everything he had. Even so, Odin taught him and Vale a chant for an attack that could literally cut anything within range, cutting it and eliminating it from existence, although in the end they couldn't even use that technique. After that, Issei decided to experiment with the power of destruction, but he still had a long way to go to manifest such power. He also lacked the ability to manipulate time and use the pieces he still possessed within him to reach his other phases. Although Drake taught him how to manifest his dragon power enough to at least overcome any enemy, for 2 years he trained both the abilities he could control and the weapons he could wield, excluding Ragnarok and Excalibur, as those were too powerful for him to wield at that time. 3 years of rigorous training followed, and at the end of the 3rd year, he was able to manifest his humanoid dragon form. He called it Dragon Install, the way he manifested his dragon energy in his body, granting him an enhancement to his physical abilities plus explosive power. However, the latter was too much for him, and Dragon Install was still something he needed to better control. Now the chestnut-haired boy, who appeared to be about 8 years old, stood gazing at the sea in the same spot where he had appeared 3 years prior. Issei had changed. His body, despite still being that of a child, was toned, somewhat like Goten's, and his hair was now long and somewhat messy, tied back in a ponytail. Issei now needed to begin the search for the runes scattered throughout Remnant to determine how much time he had left before the end, and he hoped it would be a long time. "Well, it's time to move on, we have a long road ahead of us," said Issei as a small red dragon with some golden parts landed on his left shoulder. Issei looked at it. "What do you say, Drake, we're first?" he asked his friend Drake, who was the small dragon. "I say we go to Solitas. Perhaps one of the ruins where that rune is located is near Atlas. Besides, it's the closest to us if we go further south," Drake said, his voice a little higher due to his size, though it didn't change much. Issei thought for a moment and then nodded in agreement. After all, he had time to find the runes. "Well, even though I might miss this place, we'll come back for vacation. This island is really nice at that time of year," he said, remembering how good the summer weather was, even though the heat didn't really bother him. "Well, let's go now, it's time to," but he was interrupted by a loud sound from the sky. "What the heck?" Issei said, seeing a Itagarasu, "Don't mess with me, they were supposed to be extinct." Drake said, seeing a damn Nevermore approaching with 2 more. "No way, there are 2 more, come on Issei, kill them, they say their meat is very tasty." Drake said, hitting one of his little paws on Issei's cheek. Issei, for his part, thought his friend was crazy, but he looked at the 3 Nevermores, noticing that one was the largest, while the other 2 seemed to be following him, and he guessed that it was the Alpha who he should eliminate first. "First, Drake, those things are grim, look at their masks, besides they would be missing one more leg to be Atagarasus. Second, the Atagarasus were only in our world, so it's impossible for them to be here. Third, I'm not going to eat them, I'm not crazy," said Issei, and Drake just nodded. "You're right, I'd forgotten." "Well, just kill them and let's go, I'm getting bored," Drake said, flying to Issei's side as a small flying ship appeared a short distance from Issei. It was Ryuumaru, Issei's Skadbladner, who had appeared a few months earlier, hovering near the island. Issei left it like that because he didn't want to attract attention with his super ship. "Oh, you want to finish them off by yourself?" Issei asked the small boat, which circled around him in response. "Good, finish them off quickly, we have a long journey ahead of us," Issei said, and the boat shot off at great speed towards the Nevermores, who didn't even have time to react when Ryuumaru pierced them through the heads, disappearing in black smoke. "Well, that was a bit too fast, but anyway, Ryuumaru, let's go," Issei called to the boat, which quickly transformed into a colossal white ship. "I still think it's too flashy," Drake said to Issei, who just waved his hand dismissing that. Details. Besides, every great beginning needs something of equal size. Here's the final version of RWBY. It can fit up to 500 people. It's like a cruise ship, but flying. And now it's our home while we're investigating the ruins, Issei said, and Drake simply nodded. Alright, Ryu, take us inside, Issei said as the ship hovered above him, and Drake nodded as a beam of light began teleporting them inside. Once inside, they saw the command center, which was spacious and technologically advanced. Look at all that potential, this is another level, Issei said, approaching the control panel. A chair appeared from the floor, and he obviously took a seat and began to touch the control panel screen. Are you sure you know what you're doing? Drake asked. You stay calm and I'll be nervous. It's just a matter of finding the map and plotting our destination, nothing complicated, Issei said without taking his eyes off the panel. That's it, now we have to head towards Salidas, Issei said, leaning back in his seat and relaxing. Now we need to put on some music for the trip. We'll go slowly so we don't get bothered when we enter Salidas or Atlas airspace, since according to the scroll, they're very serious and somewhat radical militarists, Issei said, searching for music for his journey. He was grateful that his phone was with him, since it had all the music he needed. Finding what he needed, he said, well, now to relax. Drake went to sleep in a seat with a pillow that appeared to Issei's left to rest for a while. Apparently, some habits die hard. And so began the journey of the chestnut-haired boy and his dragon friend, a long journey in which they would meet several people, and where they would grow in power to raise the name of the Sekiryuutei high throughout Remnant. They traveled from north to south, from south to west, from west to east and vice versa, getting to know places, people, cultures, races, and killing the occasional Grim who crossed their path. They also saved people from Grim attacks, like when he saved a woman with black hair and red streaks from a large group of Beals and Death Stalkers. Although a Beal seemed to be leading the group, the woman was weak, so he helped her using the balance breaker and unleashing his brute strength, smashing the alpha's head with a single punch. Then he tore the Death Stalkers to pieces and finally finished off the remaining Beals. Afterward, he gave the woman some energy and used for the first time some of the healing power he had received from Asia, not at the level of Twilight healing, but it helped a lot. After that, he left, leaving the woman in a safe place. Also a few months later when he was walking through the areas surrounding Mistral, in a forest a few kilometers from the city, where Issei found two girls being followed by several Ursas and some Beals, Issei used Mjolnir to, literally, break several legs, although in the end he also crushed some skulls in the process. He helped the girls to reach the city of Mistral where he disappeared. But not before leaving them both some weapons that he had made while traveling, and also only his name that both would remember since he saved them from certain death. While wandering through the Anima region, he also encountered a group that tried to rob him, but a few good punches were enough to handle them. A little while later, a woman with black hair, dressed in red and wearing a mask, attacked him, claiming it was for harming her people. She implied that she was the leader of this group of bandits. It wasn't difficult for him, as Issei already had enough skill and experience in battle to fight several Grim without needing to use BXB. The fight was short, as Issei's first action was to disarm her, and shortly after, he broke her mask, revealing a pale-skinned beauty. But he put that aside and simply left, issuing a warning that if they tried to rob him again, he would destroy their group. To make it clear that he meant it, he punched a large rock nearby, reducing it to nothing more than small pieces. The woman, named Raven, wasn't stupid and decided to leave Issei alone, as she would it would be a big problem if something happened to his tribe because of him, although he had to tell his brother about this, since he found it interesting and surprising that a child of about 8 to 9 years old was so strong. Then Issei decided to go to Drake, and to amaze the woman even more, he opened a portal with Excalibur, although that was all he could use, since the sword was damn difficult to control, and disappeared leaving behind a speechless Raven, since she thought that only her semblance could do that, but it seems that she was wrong. But all of the above is a story for another time. Issei spent the next 8 years like this, never staying put, traveling from place to place, further honing his skills, and of course, finding several of the seal runes. He learned that of the 22 he had found, only 16 were still functional, while the rest were destroyed. During this time, Issei also found a good source of dust, so he began extracting it to slowly start what would later become Schnee Dust Company's rival, Gremory Dust Industries, with a certain Surzich's Gremory as its CEO. Although that was just an alias Issei used, learning change magic proved useful. He left someone he trusted in charge of the company's affairs. The brown-haired boy already wanted to run a company, and business administration was the degree he would choose to start his own business, but that's another story. Although he no longer travels alone, someone accompanies him, someone who has helped him with 1 or 2 campaigns against discrimination towards Franus, and has done so in a cybernetic way. A very special girl who has been with him since he found her wandering around Salidas near Atlas. She and he have been there for each other ever since, as she was discriminated against because of her semblance, which consisted of hacking electronic systems. Since he found her when he was physically 10 years old, she has helped in many ways, from feeding him well to helping her transmit messages against discrimination towards Franus. Yes, since he met Olivia, everything has been fun for both of them. Even Drake admits it, since she feeds him well. They have been together for a long time, but that's a story for another time. Why? Because this chapter has already ended, but this adventure is just beginning. In all these journeys, the same specter is always watching him, and although it seems incredible, neither he nor Drake have discovered or detected it. This specter only watches them and then leaves, though no one knows why. Where it comes from still. What will become of the chestnut tree now? Time will tell. End of Chapter 0. Chapter 1 Ruby Rose, Reunion and Ozpin. Chapter 1. It was night in Vale. There weren't many people wandering the streets at this hour, or so it would seem, if it weren't for a group of men in black with hats and red lens glasses, all juniors thugs, led by a well-known criminal in Remnant, none other than Roman Torchwick, who walked like he owned the world to a dust shop that was still open at this time of night, called From Dusk Till Dawn. Roman entered Dust's store while the thugs, who were 4, started looking to see if there was anyone in the store. Roman approached the shop owner, who was startled to see them in his store, and while removing some of the butt from his cigar, he looked at the shop owner as he crossed his arms. "Do you have any idea how difficult it is to find a powder keg open at this hour?" I asked the man, who was scared because one of the thugs pointed a gun at his face. "Please take the liens and leave," the man said, frightened, when Roman shook his head. "Shh, calm down, we're not here for your money," Roman said to the man, then looked at one of the thugs. "Take the powder," Roman ordered as they began to take out several black boxes where they were going to put the dust. But if one could observe from a distant point of the store, in front of a bookshelf, standing reading, one could find a girl dressed in black, but with her face covered by the red cape she was wearing. But let's place ourselves in a location several blocks away from the store. Several blocks away. Vroom. The sound of a motorcycle engine could be heard in the streets of Vale, while the tune of the song played in the background. Riding the motorcycle, a boy with wild brown hair, wearing a white and red suit. Only with honey-colored eyes. This boy is none other than Issei, who is heading in one direction. "What a problem that the only dust store open at this hour is so far away," the brunette complained. "Damn Drake, he stayed over and wouldn't come with me," he said, remembering that at his house, Drake had lain down on a pillow in the living room, since the dragon was still small. "Oh well, Makoto asked me to do this, so I might as well hurry up," Issei said, accelerating the motorcycle. Issei, the brown-haired survivor and assassin of the walking apocalypse, after traveling throughout Remnant and meeting many people, decided to live in Vale after meeting his current companions. He found it better than Atlas or the other kingdoms, and Beacon was nearby, which he wanted to study with alongside his team. This team consisted of 3 girls he met in various parts of Remnant, each in different circumstances and with a different reason for becoming a hunter. Whether to help the world fight the Grim, to be strong enough to protect their own and crush the Grim in the process, or simply to bring equality between species. Issei loved each of them equally, as he had no favorite. They were all special to him in their own way. "Well, I'd better put on some music for the ride," Issei said, turning on the touchscreen on his motorcycle. "It's a good thing Olivia installed this. I don't know what I'd do without her and her electronic skills," Issei said, remembering one of his classmates. He pressed a few buttons, and the music started playing. "Alright, now I'm really motivated," said Issei, accelerating the motorcycle more to hurry to his destination. As our friend sped through the streets of Vale, things took a turn for the worse in From Dusk Till Dawn. The girl in the red hood, while listening to music, was interrupted by one of the thugs who had arrived with Roman. Bad choice. It didn't take long for everything to go to hell, as the girl easily defeated all the thugs, leaving her alone facing Roman, who was giving her a strange look after what had just happened. Roman glanced at the thugs he had hired. "They've earned every penny of their salary, that's for sure," Roman said, throwing his cigar to the ground and then extinguishing it with his cane. He looked at the girl in front of him. "Well, red-faced, I think we can agree that this was a memorable night and that I'd like to stay longer," but Roman said, pointing at the girl with his cane. "I'm afraid this is where our paths diverge," Roman said, pointing at the girl and firing a shot directly at her. A small explosion occurred, but before the girl could be hit. "Well, I was just here, Agustin, coming to buy something at the store when I ran into my old friend Roman Torchwick," a male voice spoke through the smoke created by the explosion of the fire charge, a voice that Roman clearly recognized. "Haidu," the man said with venom in his voice as he saw Haidu Issei emerge from the smoke carrying a kind of large rectangular sword. "Wait, Haidu? Could it be?" the girl thought, looking at the brunette in front of her, while Issei looked at her for a moment and when he saw her silver eyes, he knew who she was. "RWBY?" Issei asked, looking at the girl 2 years younger than him, whose mother he had saved some time ago. What a twist of fate, what a way to meet again after so long, Issei said, forgetting about Roman, who had taken advantage of the bug to leave the place, while Issei and RWBY were reunited. Issei. She shouted happily upon recognizing the brunette. She quickly threw herself into Issei's arms, who returned the hug. It's so good to see you again. RWBY said happily. Haha, I'm happy to see you again too, RWBY. How are your parents, the old drunk and Yang? Issei asked his friend, who was clinging tightly to him. Mom and dad are fine, they're waiting for you to visit them. Uncle Crow wants to train with you again, and Yang she misses you, RWBY said, adding the last part somewhat hesitantly, since her sister, when it comes to Issei, is rather, if not very, flirtatious, and that annoys her. I'm glad, but before we go on, I think we should look for Roman before he escapes, Issei said, pointing to a building a few meters away, where Roman Torchwick was climbing some stairs to the rooftop. Come on, Little Rose, we have someone to catch, Issei said, to which RWBY pouted when he said Little Rose. Hey, I'm not small. RWBY complained cutely, making Issei smile. Sure, said Issei, resisting the urge to hug her. Let's go, said Issei, followed by RWBY. How did you get here, Issei? RWBY asked as they approached the building. Well, I was coming to run an errand for someone when, a few blocks away, I saw the spectacle you put on. By the way, you've gotten quite strong, Issei said, praising RWBY, who smiled. If you're wondering where the motorcycle ended up, well, simple magic. I put it away before I got to RWBY's. She laughed as she was praised by Issei. They both quickly reached the rooftop of the building, RWBY propelling herself with crescent rows and Issei jumping. When they arrived they saw Roman near the edge of the building. Hey. RWBY called to him, Roman was turning his back on them. Hey, turning your back on someone when they're talking to you is very rude, Roman, Issei said sarcastically, mocking the man who was just grinding his teeth. Damn hide-you and persistent girl, Roman said angrily. At that moment a bullhead appeared for Roman to ride. One last red thing, hide-you. Roman shouted, grabbing a red crystal and throwing it at RWBY's feet. Issei reacted quickly, catching the stone with his hands and looking mockingly at Roman, who was left wanting to shoot. Oh, that's very kind of you. That's exactly what I came to buy. Thank you, Roman. But don't worry, I have a gift for you too, said Issei, pulling out a black pistol with Grim Killer written on the side. Ignore Jesus Christ is in heaven now and replace it with the words from before. Issei aimed and a powerful shot came out of the gun's barrel. It was strong, but Issei didn't want to fire at full power, since he only wanted to scare Roman, which he achieved since the shot opened a large hole in the other door of the bullhead. Damn, this guy's crazy. Roman said, frightened. Just as Issei was about to continue, another person appeared. A very beautiful blonde woman with a stern look. Okay, this just got more complicated, said Roman, looking at the huntress who had just arrived. Wow, she's very beautiful and has big breasts, but May's are bigger, Issei thought, remembering some of his other classmates, when he felt someone pinch his cheek and that someone was RWBY, who had a pout on her face. Hey, stop looking at her like that, it's obvious you're still a pervert, RWBY complained with a pout, while Issei just laughed at this. Sorry, but it can't be helped, she's very beautiful, Issei said without the blonde hearing him. HMPH, pervert, RWBY pouted. Yes, RWBY, you are very beautiful too, said Issei, stroking the head of a blushing RWBY who remained silent despite having a huntress in front of her. The woman moved her whip and several purple rays headed towards the bullhead, hitting several parts and destabilizing the aircraft, causing Roman to almost fall, so the orange-haired criminal went to the cockpit of the ship, where a mysterious lady in a red dress was piloting the bullhead. We have a hunter and some idiot left a hole in the left side of the ship, Roman said to the lady who got up from her seat, leaving the control of the bullhead to Roman. The blonde woman attacked again, this time with a single lightning bolt that caused a small accumulation of black clouds charged with lightning in the sky, but from the clouds began to fall light blue crystals that hit the bullhead. She's good, Issei said, watching the spectacle, when he noticed that instead of Roman, there was a woman whose face was hidden in shadow. She seems very familiar. It's a shame Drake isn't here. Maybe he could help me remember, Issei thought, taking in the slender but sensual figure of the woman in red. She reminds me of what happened between Ada and Leon with that woman in red, Issei thought, remembering a video game from his world. At that moment, the woman in red noticed Issei and hesitated for a moment, but she quickly dismissed that. Looking at the blonde, she prepared to attack with a fiery blast, which the blonde blocked with a shield. However, the woman in red had something else planned. Seeing orange stains on the ground, she moved her hand upward, causing the area beneath the blonde to glow and an explosion to occur. The blonde dodged it with a backflip to counterattack, levitating small pieces of the rooftop into a spear. The woman in red destroyed it with fire attacks, but it was useless, as some of the spear remained and was about to strike the bullhead. Roman was faster, though, and moved the bullhead aside, causing the spear to hit above it. The blonde didn't stand still, however, and caused the spear to split into 3 pieces that were about to strike the bullhead again. But the woman in red, who, by now, those who have seen RWBY know who she is, decided, he unleashed a wave of fiery power that evaporated the pieces the blonde was handling. The blonde, RWBY, and Issei watched as the bullhead took off. RWBY, who witnessed everything alongside Issei, decided to attack with several shots from crescent rows towards the woman in red, who merely stopped the shots with a small shield. Then, she attacked only RWBY and the blonde with an explosive fire attack. Issei grabbed RWBY by the cloak and the blonde only moved to avoid the explosion, but it was all a simple distraction to escape. What a night, Issei said to himself, watching the bullhead disappear into the distance. Then he saw RWBY next to the blonde. "You're a hunter?" RWBY exclaimed excitedly. Issei sighed in resignation. Nothing good would come of this. "Can I have your autograph?" RWBY asked the woman, who just stared at her seriously. "That look isn't very good," Issei thought. "I knew this wouldn't turn out well," Issei thought. "Why does she say that, you might ask?" Well, it's simple. The woman took RWBY and him to a place where she sat them down at a table in what appeared to be an interrogation room, since there was a light bulb in the middle and everything. The blonde, now known as Glinda Goodwitch, was giving them a lecture about what they did tonight. "They started it," RWBY said, pulling Issei out of his thoughts. He looked at Glinda with a scroll, reading some things he didn't know. "She's right, we couldn't let Roman get away with it, whatever he needs it for, besides, he's a criminal, and there weren't any hunters around until you arrived," Issei said with his arms crossed to Glinda, who looked at him seriously, something that didn't faze Issei at all. "If it were up to me, I'd send them home with a pat on the back," Glinda said, walking over to where Issei was sitting, looking at him again. RWBY was relieved that she'd been spared trouble. "And a scolding," she added seriously, tapping the writing crop near Issei, who just kept staring at her without any fear. "This is the boy Principal Ozpin told me about. He's certainly a strange one," she thought, seeing Issei staring at her. If only she knew where he was looking. "I still think she has big breasts, although May's are bigger," Issei thought, with great skill at being able to see girls' breasts without them noticing. "Ow!" she cried, frightened by the whip. "But there's someone here who would like to meet you," said Glinda, crossing her arms beneath her large bust to make way for a silver-haired man in a black suit, wearing round black glasses and a green scarf, carrying a plate of cookies in one hand and a cup of coffee in the other. "Ruby Rose," the man said, moving a little closer to RWBY to look her in the eyes. "You have silver eyes," the man said, looking at RWBY, who was surprised by that. The other RWBY didn't know what to say. Then the man saw Issei, who looked at him with a face of seriously. "If you didn't tell me I wouldn't notice," after hearing him talk about RWBY's eyes. "And hi do Issei," the man said, looking at Issei. "No, I don't have my eyes planted," Issei said with a blank expression. The man smiled, amused by the answer. "Haha, and I know it," the man said, turning serious. "Well, Miss Rose, where did you learn to fight like that?" he asked as Glinda demonstrated the fight against the thugs on her scroll. "At Signal Academy," RWBY replied, somewhat uncertainly. "Did they teach you there how to handle one of the most dangerous weapons ever designed?" the man asked. "Excuse me," Issei said, raising his hand to get the man's attention. "Yes, young Haidu?" the man asked, placing the plate of cookies in front of RWBY, who began to devour them. Issei took a few before she ate them all. "What's all this about? It's getting tedious that you keep asking RWBY about her abilities. I know that old drunk crew used to teach there, and you probably know that too, so why all this questioning?" "It seems like you're asking me about some murder or robbery," Issei said. He's right, he teaches at Signal, before I was a disaster, and now there's something like Huwa," said RWBY, starting to do karate moves in the air to Issei's amusement. "I've already noticed," the man said, placing his hands on the table. "And what's such an adorable girl like you doing in a school designed to train warriors?" he asked. I ask her that too, she's very cute and adorable to fight, although if that were the case she would kill the enemies from the diabetes that it would cause them," said Issei, embarrassing RWBY, who was blushing. "Issei!" shouted RWBY red. This made the man laugh, while Glinda remained serious. "You know, Miss Goodwitch, you should smile more. You're too beautiful to keep your face serious like Sona before that," the brunette said in thought. The woman didn't say anything, but she had pink powder on her cheeks. "Well, continuing, will you answer me, Miss Rose?" the man asked. "Well, I want to be a huntress like my mother," RWBY replied, remembering how great her mother is in battle. "Oh, that's interesting. So you want to kill monsters?" the man asked again. "Yes, I'm going to continue my training at Signal for 2 more years and then I'm going to enroll at Beacon. My sister is enrolling this year and she wants to become a huntress and I want to become a huntress too because I want to help people like my mom does." My parents always taught us that we should help others, so I thought, they're much more romantic and exciting and cool, and I mean, the police are fine, but huntresses are much more romantic and exciting and cool, and Ruby started talking like Deku, but Issei interrupted her. Not so fast, Speedster, I think they've got your point, Ruby, Issei said, and she just blushed at that. Do you know who I am? Ruby's man asked. You're Professor Ozpin, the principal of Beacon, Ruby replied. Seriously, you swear to me? I thought you were a saint or an undercover agent, Issei said sarcastically, making Ozpin laugh. Haha, well now young Haidu, you don't attend any academy, so how do you know how to fight like that? Ozpin asked Issei. Certainly, I don't study at any academy, and as for the other thing, life taught me. Traveling from one place to another has made me learn to survive, plus I had previous experience, Issei said, and Ozpin nodded. Well, and that weapon, I suppose you Ozpin began. Yes, I made it myself, although not entirely since I asked someone for help with the ammunition, but the rest was me, Issei replied. Okay, now I'm asking you both, would you like to come to my school? Ozpin asked. More than anything in the world, Ruby replies. Sure, although I'd like you to do me a favor, Issei asked. Well, it depends, Ozpin said. Have my companions come with me, Issei requested. Ozpin saw Glinda, who just huffed and looked away. Okay, fine, Ozpin replied. Excellent, said Issei. Well, classes start in a month. I'll send you a form to fill out. It's just a formality. So, young Haidu, Miss Rose, I'll see you at Beacon, Ozpin said, getting up from the chair he had been sitting in to leave the place, followed by Glinda, who gave Issei one last look. Moments later Issei and Ruby left the place, with Ruby excited that she would be entering Beacon, even better that Issei would be entering too. Yang would go crazy when she found out. This is great, Issei, we're going to Beacon, how exciting. Ruby exclaimed euphorically, and Issei looked at her with a smile. Yes, that's good, Issei said, taking out his motorcycle in a magic circle, surprising Ruby. Wow, how did you do that? Is that your likeness? Ruby asked. No, it's a little trick so I don't have to go looking for my motorcycle when I leave it far away, Issei said. Wow, besides the fact that your motorcycle is great, I think Yang would like it, Ruby said, looking at the motorcycle. Yes, Bahamut is a very cool motorcycle, said Issei, getting on the vehicle. Don't you want me to take you home? Issei asked, but Ruby shook her head. No, I have to look for Yang, she went out again, and mom sent me to look for her, but you know I got distracted reading a gun magazine in the store where what happened earlier happened, but thanks anyway, Ruby said and thanked her. Well, see you Ruby, say hi to the others for me, and tell Yang to have a fantastic night haha, Issei said, making Ruby feel bad about the last part. Not you either, I have enough with Dad and Yang, with their mean jokes, Ruby said. Sorry, but it's inevitable that Issei makes an effort not to make any jokes, Issei said, making Ruby suffer even more. That's enough, Ruby said. That's good, and I'm stopping, Issei said, starting the motorcycle. Now then, see you Ruby, Issei said. Yes Issei, see you later, Ruby said, and Issei smiled at what he was about to do. See you later, Ruby, Issei said, leaving Ruby depressed. No, stop with those bad word games, Ruby said, then left the place to look for Yang in their usual spot Junior. Moment later. After traveling the way home, he arrived at a building on a corner near the Vale docks. Issei got off Bahamut to put it away again. He opened the door and entered the place, took off his shoes, leaving them at the entrance next to 3 other pairs that were feminine, walked through the corridor of his home, and passed through the living room where he saw Drake asleep on one of the sofas. He left the place to go to his room where he found 3 girls. So you're finally back, what took you all this time? One of the girls asked. Yes, you left about 2 hours ago, said another of the girls. What happened that made you take so long, Issei? Asked the last of the 3. Well, let me tell you Issei said, sitting up in bed. 2 of the girls sat beside him and the last one hugged him from behind. Issei then recounted everything that had happened that night, from his reunion with Ruby to finally meeting Ozpin. This impressed the girls, who were thrilled to be able to get into Beacon Academy thanks to Issei. I swear it was all very unexpected, but satisfying how things turned out in the end, Issei said. That doesn't matter, what matters now is that we can finally get into Beacon and become hunters, said one of the girls. Yes, all thanks to the fact that peculiar things happened to Issei, said the second one. It's good to know that we'll be in Beacon now, and even better with Issei by our side, said the third. Well, we have a month to prepare things, and some documents we have to submit for admission will arrive in the next few days, Issei said, hugging the 2 girls beside him and letting the third one hug him from behind. Makoto, May, and Olivia, you can finally fulfill your dreams, Issei said. All thanks to you, Issei, thank you, said Olivia Colomar, a beautiful brown-skinned girl whom Issei met years ago and who was the first to accompany him throughout this time. I knew that your knack for attracting peculiar situations would do some good someday, said the second girl, who was hugging him from behind. It was Mei Lingzhu, whom he met a year and a half after being with Olivia. Haha, being with you is always fun, Issei. Now in Beacon it will be even better, said the third, named Makoto Nanaya, a squirrel Francis whom Issei met a year and a half ago. She had been alone since her family died due to a grim attack. She is special like the others to Issei. Well, you don't have to thank me, I did what anyone would have done, Issei said. But they still didn't, Olivia said. Ah, okay, I'd better take a shower and then go to sleep. We have work to do tomorrow, said Issei, getting up to head to the bathroom. Do I have to hack the entire Remnant TV network again? Olivia asked. Yes, we have to keep bothering them with those messages. After all, Francis are living beings like all of us, and the discrimination that still exists is unacceptable, Issei said, making Makoto smile. Okay, but I imagine you're doing it for them too, right? Mei asked, and Issei just smiled. Yes, after all, Athena and Sienna are my friends, and since I prevented White Fang from resorting to violence to deliver her message, everything has been fine, Issei said as he entered the bathroom. This Issei, he cares about all his friends, Olivia said, looking at the bathroom door. That's just how he is, and he always will be, Mei said, smiling. I like it the way it is and I always will, Makoto said, lying back on the bed. He helped us too, he's helped us all these years and taken care of us, so it's normal to fall in love with him if he treats us with kindness and helps us achieve our goals, Mei said with a lovely smile. Yes, and even though we used to fight at first, we were able to reach an agreement after Drake told us about Issei, Olivia said. But that doesn't stop them from being after him, Makoto said with a pout, remembering some girls. Don't worry, after all, they have to pass the test if they want to be with him, Olivia said calmly. It's true, not just anyone can be with him for no reason, although among all of them there is only one who convinced me, Mei said thoughtfully. Oh, you're talking about Carmine? Makoto asked. Yes, she's been after Issei ever since she met him 2 years ago, and I can tell you she's serious. That surprised me, especially knowing she didn't mind sharing, Mei said. After all, what do you expect from her? It was obvious from her attitude and personality that it would end up like this. After all, she's very daring when it comes to love, Olivia said, lying in bed. Yes, but let's leave that for now. Let's wait for Issei to come out so we can go to sleep, because tomorrow is another day, said Mei, taking off her glasses to put them in a small box on the dresser. Yes, it's best to rest, Makoto said sleepily. So after 10 minutes Issei came out of the bathroom wearing only pajama pants, showing the girls his scarred and well-formed body, while drying his hair that was falling down due to the humidity. Of the three only Makoto had a nosebleed while laughing like a pervert, Olivia had a slight blush, and Mei had a very noticeable one. Well, it's time to sleep, girls, Issei said, approaching the bed to sleep. He lay down between Mei and Makoto with Olivia on top of him. Good night, girls, Issei said. Good night, Issei, the three of them said, turning off the light and falling asleep close together, while Drake smiled in the living room, sensing his friend's happiness. Time skip. -1 month later. It was another day in Vale, everything was quiet, people were going to work, and others were going to do other things, while on one of the busiest streets in Vale, the news was being broadcast thanks to a giant screen on one of the largest buildings in the city. And in other news, the giant dust company, Gremory Dust Industries, has once again risen to become the largest dust exporter in all of Remnant, far surpassing Schnee Dust Company, which was previously the leader in the dust market. The transmission was interrupted as a symbol appeared on the screen. Then a somewhat distorted voice began to be heard while the logo remained on the screen, a transmission that was not only limited to Vale, but also to the other kingdoms, especially Atlas. Well, first of all, good morning, inhabitants of Remnant. My friends, how are you? I'm fine, by the way, happy to be here with you as I am every week. The voice, clearly distorted, belonged to a man. People were used to it and liked what he said, or at least most of them did, since only a few thought they should catch whoever was sending those transmissions. As always, today I've come to talk to you about Francis, my good friends the Faunus. I don't know why humans discriminate against them. I mean, they breathe, walk, and eat like any normal human or living being. Just because they have animal characteristics doesn't make them different from a human. In fact, they could pass as one without problems, depending on the type of Faunus. But people don't understand. The physiology of a Faunus and a human is almost the same, only the Faunus have some enhancements in their normal senses. The man spoke as a crowd gathered to watch. Others ignored him. Even in the houses or places where they watched the news, they were attentive to what he was saying. The subject was saying, after all, he was telling the truth. Only a few still think that Faunus are monstrosities or inferior to humans, poor fools. Anyway, thanks to the fact that the vast majority accept that, there are others who don't, so we thank those who accept Franus as equals, while those who don't, well, let me tell you, you're wrong because that only fills this world with unnecessary hatred. But oh well, to each their own. I hope that those who accept Franus as equals continue to do so because they are good people. So, I'll say goodbye, but not before wishing you a good day and all the best. This is Anon signing off. The subject finished speaking as the next symbol ended the transmission. As happens every week, the messages that have been appearing throughout Remnant for the past 4 years, delivered by someone still unknown and wanted by Atlas authorities, have had a great change and impact on the population of Remnant. Discrimination against Franus has decreased by 85%, and White Fang has confirmed that the one delivering these messages is neither Franus nor human, but rather on both sides, a mysterious hero known only to a limited number of people. Gremory Dust Industries. CEO's office. Ah, another broadcast done right, all thanks to my beautiful hacker, said Issei, sitting behind a desk that was the CEO's desk. Sitting on his lap was Olivia, smiling. Yes, they were both behind the broadcasts for years, since Olivia's semblance was dedicated to manipulating electronic devices of any kind. She was a hacker par excellence, and thanks to her great hacking skills, they were able to take control of television broadcasts and any electronic media. In this way, Issei delivered messages that reached people who could understand about the issue of discrimination against Franus and vice versa. You're welcome Issei, you know I like helping you, Olivia said as she received a kiss on the lips. Was the sound of pleasure at feeling Issei's kiss. You're great, Olivia, but where are the others? Issei asked. They're with Carmine, Olivia said, and Issei just shook his head. Those girls, I imagine they'll be out shopping for a while, Issei said. Well, why don't we play a video game while we wait? Olivia asked, and Issei nodded. Of course, Issei said. And so they started playing video games for the next few hours. We're back. A female voice called as Mei, Makoto, and a girl with long, straight copper-colored hair with a white streak entered through the door. Welcome back, girls, Issei greeted the three of them, and the copper-haired girl was happy to see him. Hi Carmine, how are you today? Issei asked. The girl's name was Carmine Esclados. She was a second-year student at Beacon and had known Issei for 2 years. Great, thanks for asking, honey, she said. Yes, she calls Issei honey, she always does, and the girls are used to it. I heard you're going to Beacon tomorrow. You have no idea how happy I am to know my friends and you, honey, will be there. That way, we can spend more time together, you and I, Carmine said cheerfully, adding the last part with her typical flirtatiousness, which only made everyone smile. Yes, we have to be there early tomorrow to catch the bullhead buses to Beacon, and yes, we'll be spending more time together since we haven't been hanging out like we used to since you started studying at Beacon, Issei said, cheering Carmine up, and Olivia got up from his lap to go join the girls. That's great, that way I can be with my best friends and you, Carmine said, approaching Issei and sitting on his lap. The girls saw this with amused smiles, since Carmine was always like that when it came to Issei. So, when the initiation is over for you guys, what do you say we take a tour of Beacon so you can get familiar with it? Carmine said, smiling at Issei, who, in turn, hugged her around the waist. That seems perfect to me, said Issei. The girls had told him why Carmine was like that with him, although at first he thought it was just for her fun, but that wasn't the case. They spent some more time talking until Issei decided to leave the company and take the girls for a walk. After all, it was still midday, and they had to make the most of their time until classes started at Beacon. In a place in Vale. That will be your mission, and stay in touch, a female voice said through a scroll. Yes, we'll keep you informed of anything that happens, said a female voice. It belonged to a beautiful woman with long, wavy black hair, a lock of which covered her left eye, leaving only her beautiful amber right eye visible. Okay Cinder, I want you to keep an eye on him and, if possible, interact with him. If anything out of the ordinary happens, let me know, the female voice said again to the woman named Cinderfall, who nodded. Of course, now if you'll excuse me, I have to find those 2 girls to start the preparations, said Cinder. Of course, see you soon dear and take care, said the voice, making Cinder smile. Don't worry, we'll be fine, Cinder said, ending the call. She stood up from her chair and glanced at a coat rack in the room where 3 Beacon girls' uniforms hung. I hope nothing bad happens. The Grims have been acting really strange lately, she muttered to herself. She walked over to the dresser and saw a small framed photo of herself and 2 other girls. One with black hair and a look somewhere between bored and mischievous, and the other with green hair and red eyes, smiling. Cinder smiled and decided to go find the girls in the photo. I hope they haven't gotten into trouble, she said, leaving the room. There was only 1 day left before Issei and his girlfriends would attend Beacon Academy, where new adventures, reunions, and new friendships would begin, along with Issei's new school life to become the strongest hunter in history. Now he will obtain the power to protect what is new and leave the name of the Sekiryuutei marked in the history of all Remnant. End of Chapter 1. Chapter 2 The Shining Lighthouse and Reunions more or less. Chapter 2. Bullhead Rumbo a Beacon. It was another day in the land of Remnant. Today Issei and his companions would attend Beacon Academy to become hunters. Issei was alone on the Bullhead, having left home a few hours earlier to attend to something that required his attention. The girls left later to catch the first bullheads that took students to Beacon. Issei managed to catch one of the last bullheads to Beacon, unaware that he wasn't entirely alone on the journey. That was quite a problem earlier, wasn't it, Issei? Drake said to his friend, who nodded as he looked at the scenery from the bullhead's window. Who would have thought it was a distraction to get that guy out of jail? But now we have to wait to find out where he is, since he's very elusive and has also become stronger, Issei said to Drake, who nodded inside the sacred gear. He can enter whenever he wants. I hope he doesn't cause any trouble. That guy is too dangerous to be running around loose, Drake said. Yes, if we hadn't fought seriously that time, he would have escaped us, but now we are stronger, but we have to find him so that he doesn't create a desire for you again, Issei said. What are they talking about, you might ask? Well, it's simple. About 4 years ago, Issei encountered a very famous criminal whom he captured and sent to prison. The man was extremely dangerous, so he was sent to the largest prison in all of Remnant, where only the most dangerous criminals, whether Fronis or human, were held. It was similar to Impel Down, with several floors where the most dangerous criminals were housed. However, in this prison, only one criminal was confined to the deepest floor. This criminal ran into Issei a year ago when he was alone searching for the lands of the God of Darkness. He encountered the man and had to use Balance Breaker at full power to knock him out and hand him over to the Atlas authorities, where James Ironwood put him in that prison whose name he still doesn't know. I hope he doesn't cause any trouble soon, because if he does, I'll have to kill that guy for good, Issei said, still gazing at the scenery from the bullhead's window. He noticed a blonde girl beside him who seemed unwell. Huh? Issei looked her over and saw she was nauseous. He reached into his pocket and found what he was looking for. Hey, girl, Issei called to the blonde, who looked at him with her hands over her mouth. Here, this might help with your problem, Issei said, handing her a pill and a water bottle from his bag. Without hesitation, the blonde quickly accepted the offer and took the pill. She immediately stopped feeling nauseous and was relieved. She didn't want to make a bad impression by vomiting. Thank you for that, I needed it, said the blonde gratefully to the brunette who smiled at her. No problem, by the way, I'm Haidu Issei, nice to meet you, Issei introduced himself, to which the blonde smiled. Dinark, Issei, we've seen each other a lot, the blonde introduced herself, and Issei nodded. Do you suffer from dizziness due to heights or just from any type of transport? Issei asked, to which the blonde was a little embarrassed but answered. Yes, I get dizzy quickly if I stare at a point or feel the movement of the bullheads. It's motion sickness I suffer from, Jean said, and Issei nodded. Well, you don't have to worry about that anymore. The medicine you took takes away nausea for a long period of time. I can give you more if you want. Clearing your head of everything isn't useful to me, the brunette offered, to which Jean looked at him in surprise. Seriously, you'd do that for me? You have no idea how happy I am, that way I won't look ridiculous when I fly again, the blonde said, thanking Issei, who smiled. Issei, unaware that he was a little ways away from him, were RWBY and a blonde woman who was Yang Xiaolong, RWBY's sister, both immersed in their own world, ignorant that Issei was near them. Minutes passed as Issei talked with Jean, getting to know her better. He learned that Jean's family consisted of 6 other sisters, making her the 7th. He also learned that she possessed a weapon that had belonged to her grandfather. Issei was impressed by the weapon, as the sword was anything but ordinary, but he let it go. To Issei, Jean was very cheerful and pleasant. He liked her personality. She was also very cute, as she blushed when Issei complimented her. Apparently, she liked compliments. In short, a very pretty, sweet, fun, and somewhat playful girl. Jean and Issei would get along very well during their time at Beacon. The criminal Akuma has escaped from prison. Legion officers, led by Mr. James Ironwood, are on the trail of the suspect, who is believed to be responsible for various crimes, from murder to robbery. If you encounter the suspect, you are advised to get away as quickly as possible due to his dangerous nature, a reporter announced, delivering the news displayed on the bullhead. Issei looked at this seriously. This guy was truly a nuisance. In other news, the Fawn Rights group White Fang, in conjunction with the renowned Red Dragon, dismantled a group of slavers operating clandestinely in Mistral, enslaving both humans and Faunis. Their leaders, Gira Belladonna, Sienna Khan, and Athena Taurus, stated that they have been seeking out these kinds of places to eliminate them from Remnant. 59 criminals have been apprehended and will be transferred to Atlas for trial, the reporter added, making Issei smile at the news. You have no idea how good it feels to hear that my name isn't being used for something stupid, my friend, you're the best, Drake said, happy to know that the Red Dragon's name is respected in many places. And it's only the beginning, my friend, only the beginning, Issei thought. Wow, the White Fang really does its job. It's good to know that despite everything they help humans, although lately thanks to that guy who's been on TV for years the treatment of the faunus has changed, it's good, said Jean, watching the news with a smile. Yes, that's very good, Issei smiled, and they both went to a corner to continue their conversation, while Ruby and Yang went to watch an announcement that Glinda made after the news. Moments later. Beacon. Wow, so you were traveling all over Remnant. That must have been fun, Jean said to Issei, who just smiled calmly. It was good in some ways, although the only annoying thing was the Grim, they were very annoying, Issei said, frowning as he remembered the number of Grim he killed daily. That must have been really annoying, she said, and Issei nodded. They walked for a while until Issei saw the girls. Hey, this way. Mei shouted to Issei as a brown missile shot out towards Issei who was already prepared. Issei, said Makoto, hugging Issei tightly, who stroked her head. Makoto, I'm here, haha, said Issei to the squirrel girl who was smiling very kawaii while rubbing her face on Issei. Looks like you've come with good company, huh? Olivia said, looking at Jean, who decided to introduce herself. My name is Jean Arc, nice to meet you, she introduced herself to the girls. Mei Ling Zhu, but call me Mei, it's a pleasure to meet you, Jean, said the brunette with glasses with a kind smile. Olivia Colomer, the pleasure is all mine, Olivia said, smiling. Makoto Nanaya, it's a pleasure to meet you, I hope we can be good friends. Said the faunus with squirrel-like features enthusiastically. Likewise, and yes, I hope we can be friends, Jean said, smiling. Ice, what am I taking so long? Olivia asked while Mei, Makoto, and Jean were talking. The Kuma escaped. I went to check on some disturbances outside Atlas very early this morning, but when I arrived, some guys showed up and I had to take them out to prevent them from causing more problems. When I found out, it was too late. They had already released him from prison. I hope he doesn't cause any problems, or at least not soon, Issei said seriously, which shocked Olivia. I hope nothing like you say happens, the brunette said when. What the hell? They both said. Issei sensed a familiar energy and just let out a tired sigh. It's RWBY, I have to see what happened, I'll be right back, Issei said, to which Olivia nodded. You go ahead, we'll be with Jean, Olivia said, and Issei nodded. Issei walked calmly to where the explosion occurred. When he arrived he found RWBY apologizing to a girl who was very familiar to him. Snow White, I hope nothing crazy happens, Winter will owe me a big one, Issei thought, watching the beautiful young woman with white hair who was scolding RWBY. He let out a sigh and approached the scene, unaware that he wasn't the only one approaching the duo. Incredible. This is exactly what I meant. Said the girl with white hair and dress, annoyed. She was Weiss Schnee, heiress of the Schnee family. I'm so sorry, really. RWBY apologized, genuinely remorseful. Weiss was about to protest, but Issei thought, this is where I come in. Yes, she apologized, you should accept the apology, Snow White, said a wild Issei, appearing between the two girls. Ice. They both said, quickly looking at each other. Do you know him? Do you know him? They both said, then pointed at each other and looked at Issei. Do you know her? Do you know her? They both asked Issei. First, yes, I know them both, and second, what exactly happened to cause that explosion? Issei asked, and RWBY quickly responded. It all happened so fast. I had arrived with Yang, then we talked for a while, then I looked at some cool weapons, we talked again, she left me to go with her friends, but they passed around me so fast that I spun around and got dizzy, then I accidentally fell on her suitcases and she got mad at me, I apologized, but she didn't listen, then she started waving some jars of dust around in my face, and I sneezed causing an explosion, then she yelled at me, and you came to help me, RWBY said. Summarizing what happened in her own way. In short, it was all an accident for which you apologized, but Snow White didn't let you apologize, and then you caused the explosion because of her, am I right? Issei asked. Basically, RWBY said. Hey, it's not my fault you're so clumsy. Weiss complained. Weiss, you need to stop acting like this. I know you're better than your father and brother, so apologize to RWBY for not listening to her apologies, Issei said. But, she wanted to complain, but Issei stopped her. Nah, Weiss, please, Issei pleaded, and she reluctantly agreed. Whatever, Weiss said, then looked at RWBY. I'm sorry for yelling at you without hearing your apology, she said sincerely, making Issei smile. No problem, although you do act a lot like a princess, RWBY said. She's an heiress, actually, Issei and another girl said in unison. Issei quickly turned his gaze back to the newcomers. Now Blake and Ilia, who else will I run into, Cinder? Issei wondered, while elsewhere near the group a beautiful dark-haired girl sneezed. Weiss Schnee, heiress to the Dust Schnee Company, the second largest producer of energy fuel in the world after Gremory's Dust Industrialis and Hello Ice. It's been a long time, said the dark-haired girl, who was Blake Belladonna, Issei's friend for years. Yes Ice, it's been a while since you've been to Menegri, Athena and Sienna have missed you, even if they won't admit it, said his companion, Ilia Amatola, a friend of both Blake and Issei, a chameleon Franus who, thanks to her features, passes as an ordinary human. Yes, about that, we'll talk later, okay? I can't tell her I was with both of them a few days ago, they'll kill me, Issei thought when Weiss spoke. Although I like the recognition, since my father has been leading the company, I can't say I'm proud of the deals he makes and who he associates with, Weiss said candidly, since the Schnee family has been involved in several scandals since her father took over the company, all because of him. Oh, it's good to know that you admit the company's shortcomings, Blake said, surprised, but she didn't show it. Her monotonous face prevented that. You should stop being so expressionless, it ruins your pretty face, Issei said, slightly blushing the cat Franus and making Ilia, Weiss and RWBY jealous, although more so Weiss but she didn't show it. Well, it was a very nice reunion, but we have an orientation to attend. It was a pleasure meeting you all, and Ice, we have a lot to talk about. Goodbye, Weiss said, walking away with his servants who carried his suitcases. Yes Weiss, nice to meet you too, by the way I'm RWBY Rose and again, I apologize for earlier. Said RWBY, enthusiastically saying goodbye to Weiss. We're leaving too. I hope I can talk to you, Ice, since we have a lot to discuss as well, Blake said to Issei, who smiled nervously before looking at RWBY. And it's a pleasure to meet another of Issei's friends. See you, RWBY Rose, Blake said, returning to her book and continuing on her way. See you later Issei, and like Blake we have a lot to talk about, you too RWBY, Ilia said goodbye to follow Blake. They were very close. See you later, Issei said, then looked at RWBY. Shall we go? Issei asked. Sure, RWBY said, and so they both walked to the auditorium where the first years would meet. Moments later. So you met them on your travels, RWBY said, and Issei nodded. Although dealing with Weiss at first was a pain in the ass, I managed to handle it. Her older sister was more approachable, but in the end we got along well, Issei said, and RWBY nodded. Wow, but the way you changed her, it's clear she's someone who gets angry easily, RWBY said, and Issei smiled nervously. Well, it was very complicated and a long story, I'll tell you later, Issei said, and RWBY nodded. And tell me, what was that gun you pulled out the day of the robbery? RWBY asked excitedly. Issei smiled at that, finding it very cute. Well, I created that one about 2 years ago, it's powered by dust of fire and darkness, but I also have another one that's powered by dust of ice and light, Issei said, taking out the black pistol and another one just like it, but white with an engraving that said, Grim Annihilator. Seeing Issei's weapons excited RWBY too much. Wow, those are great, can I have them, can I? Can I? Please. RWBY asked, giving me puppy dog eyes that were actually too adorable coming from her. Issei let out a sigh at that. Yes, you can, but be careful, they're heavy, Issei said, and the girl nodded as she took the two weapons that almost knocked her to the ground because of their weight. Wow, they're heavy, how can you hold them so easily? RWBY asked, struggling to hold Grim Killer and Grim Annihilator. Well, what can I say, I'm strong, Issei said, flexing one arm to emphasize his strength. I see, RWBY said, handing Grim Killer to Issei. But how did you make them? They look normal, apart from their abnormal weight, of course, RWBY asked, examining Grim Annihilator closely. Well, to be honest, it wasn't easy, since the charge was extremely explosive. We needed a metal that could withstand the destructive power of the charge, so finding it was a very special task. Apparently, it's called adamantium, and only the Gremory Dust Company was able to find the deposit. So, after creating the weapons, the result was this. Heavy weapons for someone with great strength, Issei replied, though he lied because he wanted weapons like Alucards. He said about creating the weapons piece by piece with a metal he named after the Marvel character, since he liked the name. They were lucky to quickly acquire that metal deposit. Wow, and how do you recharge it? RWBY asked. Issei, using Grim Killer, pressed a button that released the magazine, which contained 2 dust plates, one dark and one red. Oh, that explains a lot, RWBY said. They walked a little further until they reached the auditorium where all the first-year students would gather. Issei saw Jean, Olivia, May and Makoto in the distance, the latter calling him so that Issei had to momentarily separate from his friend. Well RWBY, I leave you now, I have to go to my friend's place. Say hi to Yang, but don't tell her where I am, because you know how she gets with me. It's not that I mind, but this isn't the place or time to act like that, Issei said, and RWBY nodded. Of course, Ice, I'd better let you talk to her, lest she get clingy, RWBY said, adding the last part jealously as she remembered how her sister acted with Issei. "That's my Ruby, thank you and see you later," said Issei, gently stroking Ruby's head before leaving to join his team. A slightly blushing Ruby smiled as she touched her head with both hands, then went to where her sister had called her. "Ice, it's so good you're here," Makoto said, smiling, and Issei stroked her head, since she always liked that. Haha, the squirrel girl laughed with delight. "Hey girls, I see you get along well," said Issei, looking at Jean who smiled. "Yes, Jean is a nice and fun girl," Makoto said. "She comes from a family where everyone was a hunter," Mei said. "Oh, that's interesting and surprising," Issei said, looking at Jean. "I imagine you want to continue that legacy?" he asked the blonde, who nodded. "Yes, my parents, their parents and their parents were hunters, the sword and shield I have are a family heirloom," said Jean. "That's great, it's good to know there are still people like you in the world," Issei said, making Jean smile at the compliment. "Ice." Weisse's voice called out, reaching Issei and his companions, "It's time you explained why you haven't contacted me, and why Winter has a letter for me." The Ice Princess asked, looking at Issei seriously with her arms crossed. "Well, first let me introduce you to my companions," Issei said, calming Weiss down a bit. "Girls, Weiss Schnee, Weiss, girls," Issei said, introducing the girls. That's how the girls and Weiss introduced themselves. "Well, will you answer my questions?" Weiss asked, crossing her arms seriously. "Has anyone ever told you that you look beautiful when you're serious like this?" "Because if they haven't, they're blind," Issei said, breaking Weiss's seriousness and turning her pale skin into a blush. "But seriously, what can I say? I've been really busy. I can't stay in one place for long and I'm constantly traveling around Remnant, so it's hard for me to keep in touch with my friends. I've only run into Winter on my trips to Atlas when I have errands to run. I gave her a letter to give to you, but knowing Winter, she probably forgot because she's so focused on her work. But don't worry, I'll talk to her about it. So don't get so upset. After all, we'll be studying here for the next 4 years," Issei said, approaching Weiss and gently stroking her head, much to her delight. "Well, I believe you, but you have to reward me properly, so I expect something nice from you," Weiss said, to which Issei smiled amusedly. "Whatever my queen says," Issei said, making Weiss blush. "Why you idiot," she said, blushing, to the amusement of the girls. Then Issei hears someone calling him. "Issei," shouted a female voice in the distance. "Huh?" Issei said when he saw a familiar head of blonde hair in the distance. "Girls, I'll leave you for a moment so you can get to know each other, I'll be right back," Issei said. "Of course, Ice, go ahead," Mei said. "Okay, I'll be right back," Issei said, heading off to where he was being called, leaving Weiss with the girls. "So, where did you meet Ice?" Weiss asked. "Well, it's a long story that we'll tell you later, but tell us, how did you meet him?" Makoto asked. "Well, and so Weiss began to talk to the girls." Issei. The chestnut-haired man walked among the students until he reached the place where they called him. "Ice. How are you? Why are you mean and let only Ruby see you before me, huh?" asked a blonde with violet eyes, being Yang Xiaolong, Ruby's older half-sister. "Haha, hi Yang, sorry I haven't been able to talk to you before, haha, I bumped into Ruby by chance, but don't think I've forgotten about you," said Issei, and Yang just nodded. "Well, that satisfies me, but you still didn't talk to me when you arrived here," Yang said. "Well, Ruby had an explosive encounter with a friend of mine, so I helped her avoid further problems, but she told me that you dumped her, so it's not my fault I always run into her first," Issei said, and Yang looked at Ruby. "Oh my god, you really exploded," she said, surprised. "That's what I've been trying to tell you all this time," Ruby said, annoyed, looking at her sister. "What, didn't you believe him?" Issei said. "Haha, well, you know Ruby can be quite dramatic about some things," Yang said. "Hey." Ruby complained with a pout. Okay, but getting back to the topic, how are you Yang? Have you been Yang-tastic?" Issei asked, and Yang smiled. At that moment, Ruby felt true terror. "Well, you made my day by being here," Yang said, smiling. "That's enough, you two, please," Ruby said to them both, who laughed. "Ahem. I'll be brief," Ozpin's voice boomed over the loudspeakers. "You've traveled here today seeking knowledge, to hone your skills and acquire new abilities. And when you finish, you plan to dedicate your lives to protecting people. But I look at you, and all I see is wasted potential, a lack of purpose, a lack of direction. You assume that knowledge will free you from all of this, but your time at this school will show you that knowledge can only take you so far," Ozpin said, then looked at Issei and Ruby and smiled. "It's up to you to take the first step, so I hope you don't waste that latent talent within each of you on trivial or unnecessary things. I hope you find that reason that will make you grow both as people and as hunters. I have high hopes for you, young ones," Ozpin said, looking at them all before leaving Glinda and departing. The night you will spend in the ballroom, tomorrow your initiation begins, be prepared, you may leave, said Glinda, who looked at Issei and he smiled at her, but she just left. She should stop being so serious, she's wasting that beautiful face, Issei thought. He seemed a little strange, Yang said. It's almost as if I'm not there, RWBY said. Well, he seems to be the type of person who doesn't talk much unless it's necessary, Issei said. Well, you may be right, Yang said. Hey, how about we go for a walk around Vale before we head back? RWBY suggested. That sounds good to me, that way you can meet my friends, Issei said, and Yang and RWBY looked at him. Well, whatever, let's go, Yang said. So the three of them went to where the girls were chatting calmly with Weiss, but Issei didn't notice that a retard with green eyes looked at him from behind with a smile. I knew it was my best choice to enter Beacon, the retard told herself. Time skip. -5:30 p.m. Several hours had passed and Issei was returning alone from Vale. He let the girls return to Beacon before him, since he was busy buying some things in Vale, although most of it was junk food. He was now returning from his short trip and watched the sunset. It was beautiful to see from Beacon, but he decided to make his way back to the Beacon auditorium. Issei was so lost in thought that he didn't notice someone following him. He was thinking about White Fang and other things until whoever was following him called out to him. How long will you continue to ignore that I'm following you? A female voice asked from behind him. When Issei turned around, he saw a beautiful black-haired girl with amber eyes looking at him with a soft smile. Hello Ice, it's been too long, the girl smiled in front of him. Issei approached her, smiling. Cinder, how are you? Issei asked. Yes, the girl in front of him was named Cinder Fall, a girl he had met 3 or 4 years ago. From the moment he met her, she reminded him of Akeno because of her sensual and flirtatious attitude towards him. It's so nice to know you still remember me, Ice. You have no idea how happy I am to know we'll be attending the same academy, Cinder said, walking sensually toward the brunette and wrapping her arms around his neck. Tell me, are you still with those friends of yours? I'd like to make them jealous again, like years ago, Cinder said. Issei smiled. This girl was a bombshell. He put his arm around her waist and pulled her into a warm embrace. She was a little surprised and even blushed slightly, but she returned the hug, resting her head on Issei's chest. So warm. I really like this feeling. I knew this mission would be so enjoyable, the dark-haired girl thought. You have no idea how much I missed you. I haven't been able to contact you since you left 2 years ago. Tell me, Issei said, pulling away slightly from Cinder to look into her face. What have you been doing? Issei asked. I've been busy with work, you know how I am, like you I'm never in one place, so I've been busy, Cinder said, trying to remember something. Oh, that's right, you know what, Ice, I met 2 girls after we parted ways. One is the daughter of that guy Black you almost killed years ago, and the other is a girl with great thievery skills. They're both strong, so I decided to take them under my wing. I've been training them, and I can tell you they're strong, Cinder said. Issei watched this with interest. After all, he knew Cinder was very skilled. She uses fire like. Wait a minute. Cinder. Issei spoke seriously, because she was dressed differently he wouldn't have noticed. Tell me what you did a month ago at night, he said seriously. This made Cinder tense. I was sleeping. She said. When she got nervous, she couldn't lie well, and it only happened with 2 people, one of them being Issei. Yes, and I was hunting ducks while riding a pony, Issei said with a blank expression. Oh, that sounds interesting, you know. Said Cinder, wanting to avoid explaining things. Seriously, you worked with Torquich? Issei said, and she let out a sigh. I didn't know you'd be there, plus he paid me up front to cover for him if anything went wrong, and apparently it did, you almost blew us up with that gun of yours. Cinder said. Well, in my defense I can say that I didn't get a good look at you because I was busy protecting RWBY, plus you almost hit me with those fireballs, Issei said, and Cinder playfully punched him in the chest. Idiot, I'll forgive you just because it was you, but anyway, shall we go to the auditorium? Cinder suggested, and Issei nodded. She quickly grabbed one of his arms, much to Issei's delight. Okay, let's go, she said. She wanted to make Issei's friends jealous, but she didn't know that Issei's team was no longer affected by that. Let's go then, said the chestnut-haired boy as Cinder led him to the auditorium. Upon arriving, they both noticed that several of the new arrivals were already there, and I noticed a certain group in a place with some girls with black, yellow, and white hair. Come on Cinder, the girls are over there, I'll introduce you to my other friends, said Issei. Okay, Ice, said Cinder as they both arrived where the girls were. Of the 8, only 2 got jealous, one was somewhat uncomfortable, and one pouted when she saw Cinder clinging to Issei's arm. Oh, but look who's here, if it isn't the fire lady, how is Cinder? Olivia asked, approaching Cinder. Oh, how are you Olivia? Nothing, just very comfortable here with Ice, the dark-haired woman said mockingly, but the hacker didn't even flinch. Oh, you expect me to get jealous. Please, that's in the past. But since you seem very interested, I'd like to talk to you later about something, Cinder. What do you say? You'll gain a lot, right girls? Olivia said, then looked at Makoto and May. Yes, they both said, smiling as they looked at Issei. Aha, would you introduce us to your friend Ice? Weiss asked jealously, seeing Cinder still clinging to the brunette's arm. Oh, yes, sorry, Yang, Ruby, Jean and Weiss, this is Cinderfall, a very dear friend of mine. Cinder, these are Yang Xiaolong, Ruby Rose, Jean Arc and Weiss Schnee, they are my friends. Well, I met Jean today, but she's a very nice girl, said Issei. Cinder looked at the four girls, noticing that Weiss and Yang were looking at her jealously, which brought a wicked smile to her face. Oh, nice to meet you girls, it's good to meet friends of my dear I, said Cinder, looking more at Weiss and Yang, much to their annoyance. Nice to meet you, it's a pleasure to meet another friend of Ice's, Weiss and Yang said with a jealousy that Issei noticed very well. Ah, not again, Issei thought, knowing this was going to last until the afternoon. While Issei watched Cinder interact with Ruby, Yang and Weiss, much to the amusement of Olivia, May and Makoto, and even a somewhat uncomfortable Jean who laughed nervously, this was observed by some Fraunus who smiled amusedly, and the same Redeed from earlier who also smiled amusedly, without noticing that a green-haired girl and a gray-haired girl were looking for someone in the place. One day had already ended for Issei, but tomorrow his new journey would begin in Beacon, where his legend would begin, and where the name of the Sekiryuutei who came from another world would remain in the history books for a long time. Somewhere in Remnant. So, what's the reason for your help with my escape? Asked a muscular man with dark skin and red hair, dressed in a black doji. This man is known as Akuma, Remnant's top assassin, who escaped a few hours ago. He was standing in a luxurious room looking at a chair that was in front of a fireplace, like the typical villain, from said chair only a hand protruded next to the red sleeve of his suit, holding a glass of wine. Patience, my manic friend, everything will have answers soon, after all, our goal is the same, said the man who was sitting in that place. HMPH, just so you know, that brat is my prey, and I'll be the one to annihilate him, Akuma said angrily. But you couldn't do it the first time, what guarantees that he won't put you in prison again, or worse, kill you? The man said, making Akuma growl. But don't worry, everything has its time and that boy will fall, I assure you, the man told Akuma, who just stared at the seat. He worked alone, Akuma said. But now more than ever you'll need help, after all, that boy is strong, very strong, said the man, placing the glass on a small table next to the chair before standing up, revealing a man dressed in a red suit with blonde hair, although he was still turning his back on Akuma. How do you know that? Akuma asked. That's the least of it now. You want revenge for what he did to you, I want to get him out of my way for bigger reasons, so tell me, would you like to help me finish off that brat? The man asked, and Akuma thought things over. If it's to make it clear that I'm the strongest and finish off that brat, I'll join you, but don't think I'll follow orders. I won't follow anyone's orders, Akuma said seriously. You don't have to worry about that, but if you're going to kill someone, I hope you don't leave any trace. I had enough trouble getting you out of prison once. I don't intend to do it again if that brat catches you again, the blonde man said in a serious voice. DCH, whatever you say, Akuma said, heading for the door to leave. One more thing the man said to Akuma, who stopped. Welcome to this little brotherhood, Akuma, the man said, and Akuma simply nodded before leaving the place, leaving the man alone. The room was somewhat dark, the man's face was not very visible, he walked until he was looking at the window that revealed a beautiful garden. This world will see the awakening, the man said, then became annoyed. Issei Haidu, you are an obstacle to my plans, the man said. In another place. Kingdom of the God of Darkness. My arrival was completed as ordered, a female voice said over the intercom. Excellent, good job Cinder, said a very beautiful woman with white skin, long blonde hair, and blue eyes. What do I do now, my lady? I'm friends with him, but I don't think he's heard of you, Cinder said. Don't worry about that now, just stay there with your friends, time will do all the work, the woman told Cinder. Alright, my lady Salem, I'll keep you informed of anything that happens, Cinder said. Okay, dear, I'll be waiting for further news, Salem said, then ended the call with Cinder. Salem walked into the hall of the great castle he inhabited, approached a window overlooking the dark and desolate wastelands that were the lands of the god who left Remnant millennia ago, saw the broken moon in the sky, and let out a sigh to place one of his hands on a necklace that hung from his neck. The time will soon come for us to meet again, Salem said in a nostalgic voice, looking at the photo of the necklace with affection and longing. Several things were happening throughout Remnant, and a group was forming, a group whose objective was to eliminate Issei, as well as Salem, who sent Cinder to Beacon. What will happen now? Well, everything is just beginning for the Sekiryuutei, as the future is very uncertain. Beacon Night. Ballroom. Night had already fallen in Vale, while in Beacon the new students were gathered to spend their first night in Beacon. There were several sleeping bags in the large ballroom of the place, in a place almost in the center were all of Issei's friends, that's what I'll call them for now XD, chatting in their pajamas, while RWBY was writing a letter to her friends on Signal. "This looks like a big slumber party," Yang said. "You could say that," Olivia said, looking around as if she were searching for someone. "I don't think Dad would accept all the boys," RWBY said without looking at Yang. "Neither do my parents," Jean said, watching several shirtless boys striking poses to show off their muscles. "Well, I don't know what to say about this," Cinder said, looking bored at everyone. "Come on, don't be like that, Cinder, there are cute boys here," said a gray-haired girl next to a green-haired girl with brown skin and red eyes. "Shut up, Mercy, you only think perverted things," said the green-haired girl. "Oh, how innocent she is, as if you weren't watching too," said Mercy Black, looking at her friend with some annoyance. "Mercy, Emerald, calm down already," said Cinder, referring to what her two friends were doing. "She started it." They both said angrily while pointing at each other, which made Cinder frown. "Stop frowning, Cinder, you might get wrinkles, haha," Olivia said mockingly, further annoying Cinder. "Shut up, Olivia," Cinder said angrily. "Ah, you should stop making a racket, there are people who want to sleep," Y said, seeing the fight that was about to break out. "Shut up, Princess," they both said, making Weiss back up a little, who looked indignant. "How rude," Weiss complained. "Just leave them alone, they've been like this since they met," May told Weiss, who obeyed. She didn't want any unnecessary trouble. "So, what are you doing, RWBY?" Makoto asked curiously to RWBY, who looked at her. "I write a letter to the gang and Signal. I told them I'd let them know how I'm doing here in Beacon every now and then," RWBY said to the squirrel girl, who was amazed. "Oh, how cute," said Yang, receiving a pillow in response. "Shut up," RWBY told him. "I think it's considerate of you, after all, you're the only one your age here," May said, making RWBY happy. "Yes, after all I didn't bring my friends here, although it's good to have new friends now," I smiled at her new friends RWBY. "Speaking of him, where did he go?" Yang asked, wanting to see Issei shirtless, unaware that Cinder and Makoto were thinking the same thing. "I don't know, she went to take a shower a while ago," Olivia said. "Cinder." Emerald called to her friend leader, "That boy isn't the one you're in love with." HMPH. Emerald wanted to say but was silenced by a blushing Cinder. This was seen by the girls, and the three of Issei's team smiled at this, especially Olivia. "SHHH, yes, it's that Issei I told you about," said Cinder. "You said he was handsome and all that, I don't believe any of it, you know, seeing is believing, so I'll see if he's as you describe him," Mercy said to Cinder, who smiled. "Oh, you won't believe what you'll see, haha," said Cinder, waiting to see her friend's reaction when she saw Issei. "Well, it kind of took a while, don't you think?" Yang asked. "Well, maybe he'll take his time," Jean said. "Well, maybe you're right," Yang said. Issei. The chestnut-haired man was already out of the shower wearing only cotton pants, his towel on his shoulders, and his hair loose and wet, which was long since he had let it grow. Issei looked at himself in the mirror, seeing a large scar on his right chest, a scar like from a powerful punch to kill. He remembered who gave it to him and smiled. "What will you do when you find him again, friend?" Drake asked in Issei's mind. "Kill him, which is what I should have done before," Issei said. "Besides, I have to talk to Ironwood about it, maybe I'll go after tomorrow's test," Issei told his friend. After talking about a few more things, he decided it was time to leave the bathroom. Walking shirtless through the ballroom with a towel around his neck, Issei decided to look for his friends, not noticing that he was leaving several girls blushing and others with nosebleeds. Issei walked over to where his friends saw him, amused by their different reactions. Yang, Cinder, Makoto, Mercy, and May. They licked their lips. RWBY, Jean, Weiss, Olivia, and Emerald blushed. They didn't notice that the redeed from before had seen them blush slightly, and Blake and Ilia had noticed, with a black-haired girl getting a nosebleed at the sight of Issei shirtless. "What, do I have something on my face?" Issei asked, amused. "Well, not on the face, but somewhere else," Yang said, biting the bottom of his lips. "I agree with the blonde," Mercy said in the same way. "Oh, you're Cinder's friends, right? Nice to meet you, my name is Issei Hayadu, I hope we get along well," said Issei, sitting down in his place cross-legged. "Why yes, nice to meet you, I'm Emerald Sustrai," said Emerald blushing, looking away from Issei's body. "Mercy Black, handsome, but you can call me darling," Mercy said flirtatiously, which annoyed Yang. "Hey, only I can be called that," Yang said, annoyed. "Oh, really? And who decided that, Blondie?" Mercy asked, causing Yang to get annoyed, her eyes turning red. Okay, let's calm down please, we don't want to disturb the people who want to rest," said Issei, looking around where several people were asleep, but his gaze fell upon the redeed with green eyes who smiled at him. She seems familiar, but from where? Issei thought, intrigued. Ice is right, don't fight and rest already, Y said, but someone threw a pillow at her face. Hey, that was rude, Schnee complained, looking at the culprit, who was Cinder. Okay, calm down, Olivia said. They started arguing and throwing pillows at each other's faces, while Issei, amused, shook his head and stood up, putting on a black t-shirt with Drake symbol on the back. He noticed Blake and Ilia and decided to go over to them before going to sleep. Problems with the Ice Girls? Blake asked, dressed in a purple yukata, putting down the book she was reading. The dark-haired girl questioned. They seem to be having fun, said Ilia, dressed in black pajamas. Well, it's good, but in the end you have to sleep since tomorrow you'll need to have energy for the test, said Issei, sitting down between them since they made room for him. And you, how was your first day at Beacon? Asked Issei as they both leaned back on his shoulders. Well, it's normal, I thought it would be different, you know, being a fawn, said Blake, who wasn't wearing his black ribbon, revealing his cute cat ears, which Issei stroked, making him purr. Yes, we thought we'd run into the typical prejudiced or racist idiot, but that wasn't the case. We came across some nice people, Ilia said. That's good, after all, that's what White Fang and I have been fighting for, right? For a world without discrimination towards Fraunis, although there are some Fraunis and humans who don't understand, but that's the minority. Even so, I'm glad to know that you had a good first day without problems, said the chestnut-haired man, smiling. Yes, that's very good, Blake said. Ice. Was Yang's voice approaching the trio who saw him dragging RWBY and being followed by Weiss. Issei smiled at them. What? Is your little pillow fight over? Issei asked with amusement, seeing Weiss's embarrassed face, who just turned his face away while crossing his arms and making a HMP. Well, you could say that, RWBY said, pointing to where some unconscious girls were in their sleeping bags courtesy of Yang. It got a little out of control, Yang said. A little. They were practically tearing each other's heads off with pillows for Y said, making Yang laugh nervously. Ah, stop fighting already, let me introduce you to these beautiful young ladies, Issei said, drawing the attention of the three girls and making the two Fraunis blush because of what Issei said. The cute little cat is Blake Belladonna. Issei introduced Blake. Nice to meet you, Blake said, blushing at the cute kitty comment. Likewise, Yang said, since she didn't know her. Hello again, RWBY greeted with a smile. Nice to meet you, Blake, Y said, smiling calmly. Okay, now this pretty girl is Ilia Amatola, said Issei, putting his arm around Ilia's shoulders, who blushed. Nice to meet you all, said the brunette girl. The pleasure is all mine, I'm Ruby Rose, and this is my older sister Yang Xiaolong. I know it sounds strange to have different surnames, but yes, we are sisters, RWBY said, smiling. Why Schnee, although I think you both already know that, Y said. Then they started talking for a while longer until it was time to sleep. Issei stood between Makoto and Olivia while looking at the moon through the window of the ballroom. I'm only one step away from a great path, ah that's good, Issei thought, smiling. The team selection test was supposed to start tomorrow, and I was really excited. I hoped that from now on things would be lively, at least until all the problems started. End of Chapter 2. Chapter 3 First Steps in Emerald Forest Part 1. This is what Jean looks like, in case you were wondering. This is the most decent image I could find, since I didn't want to use Jean from Fate for Femme Juan. It's the best one I found, and that's how it's staying, haha. And this is Mercy Black, the Femme Mercury. I would have liked to do Femme Crow, but I decided against it. The next day. It was another day in Beacon, the only one awake since 4 AM was Issei, who slipped away from Makoto and Olivia's grip on him. Strangely, Cinder was left on top of him, but he didn't dwell on it much, so when he got up he went to shower to be ready early. After spending 15 minutes in the bathroom, the brunette changed into a different outfit than his usual white suit, wearing only a tight red jacket and white pants. Issei waited patiently while using headphones connected to his scroll as he played a game he decided to publish. It was from his old world, and with the help of Olivia's semblance, he was able to publish it without problems. It was Street Fighters, just to pass the time. He spent the hours playing games before putting on the King of Fighters 97. He played for an hour and a half until he decided it was time to wake everyone up. An evil smile crossed his face, and from his pocket dimension, he pulled out 2 megaphones. He stood at the top of the ballroom and saw that only one girl with orange hair was awake. She looked at him, but Issei gestured for silence while smiling. She smiled back and nodded, putting in earplugs and removing the ones from the black-haired girl with a pink streak who was asleep next to her. Alright, it's time to wake these future legends up. Meh, I'll do it because it seems fun, haha, the brunette muttered to himself as he turned on the 2 megaphones and held them close to his mouth. He inhaled deeply and alright, all you lazy bums, wake up. The test starts in an hour. And it should be over yesterday. Issei's voice boomed through the megaphones, and when I say everyone, I mean everyone in the room woke up immediately. What the hell? Ice. Yang, Olivia, Weiss and Cinder shouted angrily. Ugh. My ears. Blake and Makoto complained. I'm awake, Jean said, alarmed, as she looked around. Ah, Ice, stop yelling, Ruby complained. That boy really doesn't know how to be gentle, Emerald said, annoyed. Well, she's no different from Cinder, Mercy said, stretching in place. And so everyone woke up, not without first cursing Issei a few times for waking them up like that. Meanwhile, the perpetrator leaned against the second floor railing, surveying his work with satisfaction. Hey, that was so cool, you should lend me one of those so I can try it later. Said the orange-haired girl with bright eyes, smiling at Issei. I didn't even notice when she arrived. The brunette thought, impressed. Well, whenever you like, Issei said, smiling as she smiled even more broadly. Great. By the way, I'm Nora Valkyrie and I like pancakes, I hope we can get along. Said the enthusiastic girl now known as Nora. Hi do Issei, nice to meet you Nora and you know what, I also like pancakes, although I also like cheesecake and lasagna and pizza and chocolate and many other delicious things, I hope we get along well too said Issei, and Nora looked at him with wide eyes. Oh, you like pancakes too, that's spectacular. You and I will get along well haha, said Nora and Issei smiled. She's very energetic although she also reminds me of someone, but I can't quite remember, Issei thought. Then Nora said goodbye to Issei and quickly approached the girl with black hair and green Chinese clothing, who calmly endured her talkative friend. Issei glanced over at the girls, who were staring at him, their expressions ranging from "you're dead" to "I'm undressing you with my eyes." The latter came from Mercy, Cinder after she saw what he was wearing, and Makoto, as well as Yang. Well, it's time to get on with this, he told himself, putting away the megaphones and heading downstairs to the girls for breakfast. Now that I think about it, pancakes wouldn't be a bad idea, Issei said to himself. Did someone say pancakes? It was Nora who appeared behind Issei. Issei was a little startled when he suddenly heard her. Wow, Nora, how do you manage to appear so quickly? Issei asked, and she shrugged. Believe me, it's natural for her, said the dark-haired girl with a purple streak, appearing next to Issei. Nice to meet you, Rin, I'm Nora's friend, Rin introduced herself. She has a ninja aura hi to Issei, nice to meet you Issei introduced himself as Nora hugged both of them by the shoulders with her in the middle. Yay, now we're friends, come on, the pancakes will run out. Said Nora, dragging them both towards the cafeteria. Issei smiled amusedly and looked back at the girls, while his team shook their heads in amusement, although Makoto pouted, Ruby looked impressed, Weiss was annoyed, Blake had a blank expression, Yang had an eye twitch, Ilia had a nervous smile, Cinder's amber eyes were sparkling, Jean and Emerald were surprised, and Mercy thought they had gone ahead to take Issei away from the others. So Issei spent his morning with a peculiar duo composed of the lively Nora and the silent Rin. Issei got to know them a little, learning that they were both from Mistral, and that they had been training since they were young to become great hunters. After competing with Nora to eat the most pancakes, which resulted in Issei beating her by eating 30 plates of 10 pancakes each, thus earning the admiration of the orange-haired girl, and a surprised look from Rin upon seeing that someone had beaten Nora at eating pancakes, Issei said goodbye to the intrepid duo and went to look for the girls. Locker area. Issei walked calmly, watching as Nora spoke animatedly to Rin about a hidden sign that meant they were on the same team and so on. I've got it, we'll have some kind of signal, like a distress signal Nora said, moving back and forth behind Rin, a secret signal, so we can meet in the forest. Do you know how to imitate a sloth? Nora asked. Issei smiled, amused. He was serious. His life here would be fun, very fun. Hey Ice, over here, Yang called to the brunette, who quickly approached the blonde with lilac eyes who was with Ruby and her team. Makoto had changed into her battle suit along with the others, although to say that an orange miniskirt to mid-thigh along with a tight jacket of the same color that left a lot to the eye would not be to call it a battle suit, but that way she could move better, after all the squirrel girl was all about fists. Hey girls, sorry to leave you alone, but I couldn't be rude to Nora, Issei said, scratching the back of his head. Ah, don't worry, and we knew something like this would happen, Olivia said, smiling ironically, as did Makoto and May. After all, Ice really stands out, especially with how he's dressed, May said. Yes Ice, nice suit, it looks good on you grrr, Yang said, winking flirtatiously and annoying Ruby. Yang, stop that already, but that suit looks good on you, Ice she said, blushing slightly as she looked at the brunette Ruby. Thank you, girls, the brunette said gratefully. See you later Ice. Nora called out, following Rin, who nodded her goodbye. Igwal, Nora, Rin Daiho Issei. Wow, you really get along well with them, huh? You don't waste any time, Ice, Yang said. Jealous, my pretty blonde? Issei asked, teasing Yang a little. Yang blushed at the pretty blonde comment and started playing with her hair, looking away. Me? PFFT, no, what do you think? I'm not jealous or anything, Yang said, failing to lie. Sorry, Issei said, gently stroking Yang's head. She smiled, blushing. RWBY pouted. I didn't forget about you either, you little firecracker, Issei said, stroking RWBY's head. RWBY laughed as Issei stroked her hair. Well, putting all that aside, you seem more cheerful this morning, dear RWBY. What's the reason for that? Issei asked, looking at RWBY, who smiled. Well, there are no more awkward talks or introductions, although that last one didn't happen, and that's good, today I can let my precious one speak, RWBY said as she took Crescent Rose out of her locker and stroked her like a certain guy with his precious ring. But remember RWBY, you're not the only one who will be doing the initiation. If you want to grow, you're going to have to meet new people and learn to work as a team, Yang told her. I agree with her, you grow as a person the more you interact with others, that way you can be better in the future, Makoto said. Yes, after all, teams will be formed and cooperation between teammates will be needed, and for that, better communication between everyone is needed to avoid problems, Olivia said, taking out some weapons to store them in a separate space with her semblance. Yes, RWBY, by getting to know others you can forge great bonds and grow as a person in the future, May told her. Ugh, they talk like dad. RWBY complained, putting Crescent Rose back in the locker. Okay, first of all, what does meeting people have to do with fighting? And second, I don't need people to help me grow up, I drink milk, RWBY said, adding the last part proudly. RWBY, first of all, meeting people and fighting are very important if you're going to form a team, since in this business of being a hunter, unity is strength. And secondly, Yang and the girls weren't referring to that kind of growth. Besides, milk strengthens bones. Physical growth has more to do with how one eats and also genetics in some cases, Issei said. Yes, and what will you do when we form teams? Yang asked. I don't know, I'll be on your team or Issei's or one of the girls' teams, RWBY said, turning her back on the group. Maybe you should try being on another team. Yang said somewhat uncomfortably as she hugged her long blonde hair when Issei stroked it, making her blush. My dearest sister Yang, are you implying that you don't want to be on the same team as me? RWBY asked, looking annoyed at her sister, who took a step back. What? No. Of course I want to, but I thought, I don't know, maybe it would help you come out of your shell, Yang said. What? I don't need to come out of my shell, that's absolutely it was then that a worried Jean understood both of them. Ridiculous, it's impossible that I put my equipment in slot 636 yesterday, said the blonde, looking at the paper in her hands. I'll go help you, as long as you make sure you don't kill each other, please, Issei asked his friends, who nodded. Wait, Jean, let me help you find your locker, Issei said, calling to the blonde, who stopped and looked at him. Oh, Ice, thank goodness, I would be grateful, the blonde said, relieved. No problem, after all I have to find my lockers too, said Issei, and so they both passed Weiss and the redhead with green eyes, who smiled as she saw Issei pass by. Issei and Jean arrived at their assigned lockers, as they were both assigned to the same one. Well, I'd better get my weapons out, Issei said, pulling out an orange rectangular sword and two pistols, the same weapons he showed RWBY and Jean yesterday. Grim Killer and Grim Annihilator. Wow, what kind of weapon is that? Jean asked, looking at Issei's strange sword. It's Junkyard Dog Mk3, this is both a sword, Issei said, making the weapon's blade appear, and a long-range weapon, showing the weapon's barrel. Whoa, that's awesome. Said Jean, impressed by Issei's weapon. Just then, someone called Issei. Hey handsome, how are you today? Mercy asked, arriving with Emerald and Cinder. Mercy, please shut up, Emerald said, annoyed by her friend's attitude. TCH, bitter one, Mercy said. Good morning Ice, we couldn't talk because of that girl, Cinder said as she approached Issei. Good morning to you too, Jean Arc, Cinder greeted. Good morning too, Jean replied. So, what were you doing? Cinder asked as Emerald and Mercy argued, both of them taking their things out of their lockers. Nothing, just showing my weapon to Jean, Issei said, pointing to Junkyard Dog Mk3 at his waist. Oh, let me tell you, Jean, that weapon is very strong, said Cinder, remembering a day when Issei fought against a large number of Grims. Wow, she said, amazed. Ice. Called Weiss's voice, arriving next to the redhead with green eyes who came with a smile. Weiss, good morning, how are you? And hello to you too, Issei greeted Weiss and the girl who smiled. First of all, good morning and I'm fine, thank you for asking. Now, let me introduce you to someone. Said Weiss, standing next to the redhead with green eyes, this is Purr Nico, she introduced the redhead named Purr. Hello. Purr greeted cheerfully. Hello Purr, it's a pleasure to meet you, Issei said calmly as he offered his hand to Purr, who happily shook it. Wait, Ice, don't you know Purr? Weiss asked, impressed. Now that you mention it. Issei said thoughtfully under Weiss's expectant gaze. Nope, no idea, Issei said, almost making Weiss fall over with that answer. What? Weiss exclaimed, turning to Jean. You know him, right? Weiss asked, but the blonde shook her head, further exasperating Weiss, who then looked at Emerald, Cinder, and Mercy. And you? The white-haired girl asked. Isn't she the best student in Sanctum? Emerald asked as Weiss nodded. Yes, she also won the Mistral regional tournament 4 times in a row, setting a new record, said Weiss with some admiration in his voice. Purah didn't like people talking about her achievements. But wasn't she almost defeated in the last tournament by that participant who eventually gave up and left? Mercy said as she sat putting on her black stockings over her robotic prosthetics. That's right, that mysterious competitor easily swept everyone aside, but then just gave up out of nowhere. Why is that? Cinder asked, looking at Issei, who was lost in thought after hearing the tournament's name, trying to react to Cinder's last comment. It's true, it was a difficult battle, but I'm disappointed it couldn't be completed. I know I would have lost against him, Purah said, glancing discreetly at Issei. Wait, now I remember where I saw your face. You're on Kellogg's cereal boxes. Jean pointed out, remembering seeing her on a box of Frosted Flakes. Yes, Ida, that's me, Purah spoke to the blonde. Jean Arc, nice to meet you, the blonde said calmly. I remember now. Issei said, drawing everyone's attention. I almost beat you in last year's tournament, but because of an urgent job I had to withdraw. You're the beautiful Spartan with fiery hair. Issei said, making Purah blush with how he called her and shocking the girls. That's me, Mr. Red Dragon, Purah said, smiling. Wait a minute, you're that red dragon who was about to break Purah's undefeated streak. Seriously, Ice. Why didn't you tell me? Weiss said, impressed and indignant that Issei hadn't told her anything. I forgot. Issei said, laughing sheepishly, while Weiss rolled his eyes. You sure have some surprises up your sleeve, huh handsome? If you want, you can help me train one of these days, Mercy said, winking at Issei. Mercy, you have to stop doing that. Emerald said, annoyed, then looked at Issei. Just ignore her, okay? She's very flirtatious, but like she said, you do have some good secrets, Emerald said, impressed by Issei, who smiled, making the green-haired brunette blush slightly. Although, as Mercy said, I'd like us to train really hard, what do you say, Ice? Cinder said with a rather cheeky insinuation that made Purah, Weiss, and Emerald blush, while Mercy just smiled amusedly. Well, getting back to what I came here for, Weiss said, putting the training topic behind her. Tell me, Ice, besides your friends, have you considered teaming up with anyone? Weiss asked the brunette, who thoughtfully rested his chin on his hand. Yes, I have thought about it, Issei said. Although he knew he and his girls would be a team, he was open to other people. This brought a smile to Weiss and Purah's faces, though more so to Weiss's. Well, I was thinking that, I don't know, you, Purah and I could be on the same team, what do you say? Weiss offered his suggestion. That sounds good to me, but is Purah okay with this? Issei asked, looking at the now smiling Reed. I completely agree. Purah said happily. Great. Weiss exclaimed happily, then began to think. This is perfect. The smartest girl in the class with the strongest girl and the cutest, strongest boy in the class. Together, the 3 of us will be unstoppable. I can already see it. We'll be popular, we'll be celebrities, we'll have the best grades, and maybe Ice will be mine, and Purah's too. This will be huge, nothing can come between us now. The white-haired girl began to scheme, causing everyone to sweat beads. What's wrong with her? Yang asked, approaching the group as she watched Weiss smile strangely. Yes, it seems as if she has some kind of evil plan in mind, RWBY said, waving her hands in front of Weiss to try and make her react, which failed miserably. Leave her alone, she's always been like this since I've known her, Issei said as he was hugged from behind and felt a couple of very soft bumps at the back of his head. Hey girls. Wait, what's wrong with Weiss? Makoto asked cheerfully, then looked at Weiss strangely. You look like a cartoon villain, Olivia said as she watched Weiss still deep in thought. Ice always says it's normal for her, May said. Are you all ready? May asked the girls, who nodded. Those are nice outfits, Mercy said, looking at May and Olivia's clothes, but I like yours the most. Where can I get one? She asked, noticing Makoto, who was still hugging Issei from behind, bothering Yang and Cinder and RWBY a little. Thanks for saying that. Issei helped us look for them, but May did it herself. After all, she's a genius, Olivia said. Wow, a genius? Purah asked. Yes, she created her weapons, Olivia said as May showed a strange gun that had a way of being connected to a tank on her back, said tank had a lot of light blue crystals. Wow, what an interesting weapon. What does it do? RWBY asked excitedly. This is an endothermic blaster. I use the icy energy of ice crystals and condense it to freeze my enemies. I can also create ice icicles, although their effect is too strong and can be very dangerous, Mei explained, astonishing everyone. These are Olivia and Makoto's weapons respectively, in case anyone was wondering. That's amazing. RWBY exclaimed excitedly, eager to see Mei's weapon in action. While they were talking, Issei decided to snap Weiss out of her reverie. Weiss, wake up, said Issei, pinching one of Weiss's cheeks. Weiss reacted and blushed when he felt Issei's hand on his cheek. Wow, it's good to have you back, said Issei. What happened? Weiss asked, disoriented. Nothing, it's just that the same thing happened to you again, you got caught up in your fantasies, Issei said, and Weiss blushed with embarrassment. Oh, I'm sorry, she apologized. It doesn't matter, but I think it's best if we leave now, Issei said. True, Weiss said, leaving her blush behind. All first-year students, please report to Beacon Cliff for initiation. I repeat, all first-year students report immediately to Beacon Cliff, Glinda's voice announced over the loudspeaker. Well, it's time, Olivia said, approaching Issei. Let's go. She took Issei's hand, and they were followed by an excited Makoto and a calm Mei. All of this was observed by the jealous Cinder, Weiss, Yang, and somewhat by RWBY and Per. The rest were calm, except for Jean, who was a little nervous about what would happen during the initiation. They walked for a while when Issei's eyes met those of a beautiful, short girl with black hair and pigtails, green eyes, fair skin, and a black gothic-style dress. She smiled at him and then approached Cinder's group. Issei found this strange, but when he felt her energy, he was surprised but let it go. As everyone else headed towards Beacon Cliff, the group consisting of Cinder, Mercy, Emerald, and the dark-haired girl lagged behind to talk. Where have you been all this time? Cinder asked, crossing her arms as she looked at the dark-haired woman whose green eyes had changed to two different colors. The right eye a pale pink and the left a light brown. She smiled as she took out a scroll and began to write on it. Imagine Neo's natural appearance, but with the outfit he's currently wearing. Torquich kept bothering me about his work, but when he turned his back I left and dropped off a resignation note, the girl wrote, then added, by the way, that's Ice, right? He's changed since the last time I saw him, he's gotten more handsome and stronger, the dark-haired girl said, smiling pervertedly as she said the last part, teasing Cinder. First, it's good to know you won't be working for Torquich anymore, since that way we avoid problems here, and second, yes, it's Ice, but don't even think about getting ahead of the plan, you hear me, Neo? Cinder said angrily to the girl named Neo, who smiled amusedly. What plan are you two talking about? Mercy asked, interested. It's something I might share with you two in the future, but for now let's focus on getting together on a team, Cinder said. Of course, Cinder, Emerald said. Okay, let's go to the initiation place, said Cinder, and they all followed her. Moments later. Beacon Cliff. All the students were already lined up on platforms, each with Ozpin and Glinda in front of them to begin the initiation. For years you have trained to become warriors, and today your skills will be put to the test in the Emerald Forest, Ozpin told the students. Well, I'm sure many of you have heard rumors about team assignments. Well, to put an end to your confusion, each of you will be assigned teammates today, Glinda explained. What? Oh, I wanted to be with Ice, RWBY whispered, disappointed. Issei smiled, amused by that. These companions will be with you for the remainder of your stay at Beacon, so it's in your best interest to pair up with someone you can work well with. Ozpin explained, being listened to attentively by everyone. That said, the first person you make eye contact with after landing will be your partner for the next 4 years, impressing RWBY. See, I told you so, Nora said to her friend Rin, who was listening to the principal. So we have to find that boy Issei and we'll be a super team. Nora said, smiling. Her friend thought it would be beneficial to team up with someone like Issei, since he seemed reliable on the battlefield. After finding your partner, fight your way to the far north of the forest. You will encounter resistance along the way. Do not hesitate to destroy everything in your path or you will die, he said the last part seriously, making Jean nervous, but the blonde calmed down when she felt Issei's hand on her shoulder. Don't worry, I know you can handle it, believe in yourself, the brunette said, smiling, and she smiled back. You will be monitored and evaluated throughout the initiation, but our instructors will not intervene. At the end of the route, you will find an abandoned temple containing several relics. Each pair must choose one and return to the top of the cliff. We will consider that relic and your positions to score you accordingly. Any questions? Ozpin asked, but he didn't see anyone raise their hand. Good, now to your positions. Thus, one by one, the students were ejected, with Issei's classmates coming after Cinder's group and finally RWBY, where Jean was ejected but before the brunette was sent flying. One thing before I go, Issei said. Yes, any questions, young Haidu? Ozpin asked. It's more of a suggestion than a question, and it's for Professor Goodwitch, said the chestnut-haired man. And what is it? Glinda asked, intrigued. You should smile more. Like I said before, your beautiful face was made for smiling, not for looking sour. Although your serious side is attractive too, Issei said, making Ozpin smile and Glinda blush. Well, now I'm really going, Issei said, launching himself into the sky through the ejection platform. That boy. How daring. Glinda said, blushing and annoyed, although she liked being called beautiful sincerely and for no other reason. Something tells me these years will be fun for Beacon, Ozpin said, taking a sip from his unlimited cup of coffee. HMPH, Glinda dismissed what the principal had said. Seriously, there'll be a lot of fun with this kid here, Ozpin thought, watching everyone go to their initiation test. But the initiated. Each person devised their own way of landing. Quack. Little bird, Nuo. Yes, that was RWBY, who, while in mid-flight, collided with a small bird flying peacefully. Killing it in the collision. She landed using crescent rows to spin on a tree branch before landing calmly on her feet. Then there was Weiss who used his glyphs to land gracefully, while Rin used her weapons to hook onto a tree and spin around the trunk until she fell. Woohoo. Others like Yang propelled themselves with their Ember Celica to continue flying. Haha, yes. Alahep. Shouted the blonde with dark glasses with excitement until she landed rolling on the ground. Purah reached a tree branch using her shield AKOU Acute 01 to ease her fall. She saw Jean in the distance, who needed to reach the ground but was screaming. When she went to help using Milo, she saw May using her weapon, creating an ice rink like Frozen from The Incredibles, to launch a shot where Jean fell, causing her to slip and fall on her buttocks, but safely. Thank you. Said the blonde from afar. Makoto was flying with a smile, and when she was about to fall she grabbed onto a branch and then began to jump between branches until she landed on the ground. That was great, we should try it again, said the squirrel girl with a smile. I don't think Ice would agree with that, May said, arriving by sliding across the ice rink she created with her weapon. It's best to look for Ice and Olivia, May said. Of course, I've already located it and sniff over there, Makoto said, pointing to a part of the forest. Okay, let's go, said May, following Makoto. Olivia was flying moments ago and then a skateboard appeared. The thing is that when it appeared it floated until it reached a point and waited. When Issei shot off, he decided to use his fire to propel himself like a certain superhero from a quartet. Haha, this is fun. Issei said, then felt Olivia's energy nearby. Well, I'd better hurry. Using fire, he headed towards the hacker, landing like a superhero. Haha, I never get tired of this. Well, Olivia, let's go to the girls, Issei said. Of course, Ice, let's go, Olivia said, taking Issei's hand, who simply accepted. With RWBY, she was looking for Yang or Issei, even Jean, she ran quickly until she met Weiss carrying his Mertenister ready for battle. Well, now we're teammates I guess, Weiss said sadly, although I wanted Ice to be with me, but oh well. She had even hoped to find Purah, but no. Well, that's great. RWBY said happily, as Weiss grabbed her hood. Come on, let's not waste any more time, Weiss said, wanting to avoid further delays in the initiation. Yes, let's go. RWBY said happily. But Jean, she would get up from the ground after sliding down the ice slide that May created. It's good that she helped me, I don't know what would have happened to me otherwise, said the blonde, worried, while shuddering at the thought that she might have broken a bone in the fall. Jean? A voice spoke from behind her. You're Purah, right? The retard nodded. Well, we're a team now, I hope we get along, Jean said, smiling as she stood up and extended her hand to Purah. Likewise Jean, I hope we'll be good friends, Purah said, smiling as she shook the blonde's hand. Yang and the blonde were walking peacefully through the emerald forest, but her expression showed that she was getting bored since she didn't find anyone. Hello? Is anyone there? Hello? I'm getting bored, Yang said, sounding somewhat annoyed. Crack. Is anyone there? The blonde asked, approaching the bush where the noise had come from. RWBY, is that you? She asked, opening the leaves. Drrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrr beautiful face. She rolled on the ground to prepare herself when she avoided another charge from another Ursa that appeared. The first Ursa took the opportunity to jump at the blonde, bad choice. Ah. She threw a punch, activating the charges in her right gauntlet so the Ursa was launched backward. Hi, ah. She delivered an upward hook to Grimm's jaw, followed by a kick that sent him flying back. By any chance, you didn't see a girl in a Red Riding Hood, did you? She asked, earning a growl from both Ursas. Just say no, the blonde said, performing a backflip as one of the Ursas swiped at her, completely dodging it. Ah, hahaha, mother, you can't even hit A. She stopped her sarcastic remarks when she saw something that infuriated her. A strand of her blonde hair falling softly to the ground. You. Yang began, annoyed, when the Ursas looked at her doubtfully. When Yang exploded in fury. literally, monsters. He screamed in fury when an explosive burst of flame appeared, for that was his semblance. He quickly launched himself at one of the unfortunate Grimm, with several explosive combos that ended the Grimm. The other Ursa approached Yang and stood in front of her, who was still furious. "What? You want some too?" she asked, annoyed. Roar. Sound of something flying. Slash. Odd. All those effects are lame XD. Behind the fallen Ursa was Blake, who easily finished off the Ursa. They both stared at each other. "I could have handled him," Yang said calmly as Blake smiled amusedly. "Well, we'd better look for that temple," Blake said, and Yang nodded. "Of course, even though it's not ice, I'm happy," he said with a smile, and Yang thought, following Blake who had the same thoughts. RWBY and Weiss were both taking down several Grimm, but in a short time they were surrounded by several Beals, even though there was an alpha among them all. "I think it's best to find a way out," RWBY said, looking at the Grimm while using crescent rows in sniper mode. "I agree with you, but how do we do it?" Weiss asked, clenching his fist without lowering his guard. Then flames appeared from the right side of the forest, burning several Grimm. "Look, how convenient," RWBY said. "It's best to get out of here," Weiss said, pulling RWBY by the arm. They were so calm that they didn't notice several large feathers falling from the sky. But Issei, he walked while using Junkyard Dog Mk3, easily taking down several Grimm. Issei would split them in half or leave a hole in their foreheads. "Now, I need to sense where Olivia is," he told himself, closing his eyes to feel the dark-haired woman's energy, until he did. "Well, I'd better hurry," Issei said, quickly spotting several more Grimm blocking his path. "They're more annoying than a fly," the brown-haired man said, gripping his weapon. "Alright, let's rock," he shouted, launching himself at the Grimm. "With Olivia." Ba-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta. The sound of machine gun fire echoed, taking down several Grimm. She wasn't good at fighting, but she knew how to defend herself. "Damn beasts," she said angrily, taking some mines out of her virtual space and throwing them at the Grimm's feet. "Kaboom," she said with a smile. Kaboom. Several Grimm and several trees were destroyed. Seeing what she had done, she smiled contentedly, but then an Ursa appeared behind her and was going to kill her for some unknown reason. "No, brother, get yours," Issei shouted, throwing a flaming punch that sent the Ursa crashing into several trees before vanishing into black dust. "You need to be aware of your surroundings, Olivia," Issei said, making her pout. "Shut up, let's go get Makoto and Mei," she said, turning her back on the brunette while crossing her arms with an angry grimace, but everything changed when she felt him hug her from behind while wrapping his arms around her waist. "Don't think this will take away my anger," Olivia said, playing hard to get. "Even you don't believe that, but seriously you should be more careful, I don't want anything to happen to you," Issei said, resting his chin on Olivia's head, who let out a sigh. Okay, you win, let's go for the others," she said. Issei broke away from the hug and she took the opportunity to kiss him on the cheek. "I'll train to eliminate that mistake, so don't worry, okay?" she said, placing her hand on Issei's cheek and caressing it. "Okay, but that doesn't mean I won't worry about any of you, so now let's go get the girls," Issei said, and she nodded. With Purah and Jean. Both walked calmly, both had faced some Grimm, Purah was exceptional, and Jean was more or less good with the sword. Did you hear that?" Jean asked, looking to her right. "Gunshots. It seems some of our comrades have encountered the enemy," Purah replied. They both continued walking when, by accident, a branch that Purah moved to continue on her way hit Jean in the face, knocking her down. "Jean, I'm sorry," Purah said, apologizing for her mistake. It's nothing, just a simple scratch," said Jean, with a scratch on her right cheek, before getting up. "Why haven't you activated your aura?" Purah asked, puzzled. "Well, it's hard to say, I still can't activate my aura," the blonde confessed sheepishly, as Purah's eyes widened in surprise. "What do you mean?" Purah asked. "It's hard to explain," Jean said, scratching the back of her head. "That's a bad thing. Come, let me try something," Purah said, placing her hand on Jean's right cheek. "Close your eyes and concentrate." And so she began the process. "Because it seems that when we achieve immortality, we become paradigms of virtue and glory, rising above all, infinite in the distance and unchained by death, I release your soul, and shoulder to shoulder I protect you," she recited as her aura glowed around her body, making Jean shine even brighter. When she finished, she grew tired and Jean caught her so she wouldn't fall. "I've used my aura to release yours, but the energy that protects you now is your own," Purah explained when she saw the scratch disappear from Jean's cheek. "And you have a lot of it," she said, impressed but happy for her companion. "Wow," she exclaimed, impressed, looking at her hands. Now she had an aura and she was happy about it. Beacon Cliff. In that place, Ozpin was calmly looking at his scroll, while Glinda walked towards him, also looking at her scroll. Our last pair has been formed, sir, Glinda informed the director as she looked at the latest pair. Nora Valkyrie and Lyrin. I can't wrap my head around that duo of a quiet girl and a hyperactive girl, Glinda said, looking at the aforementioned pair. Even so, she's probably doing better than Miss Nikos, although that girl Jean has good potential. She's not ready for this level of combat yet, Glinda said, observing the performance of both girls, Blonde and Redeed. Everyone can improve with training. Miss Ark hasn't had proper training, but I know she can improve here at Beacon, Ozpin said, taking a sip from his mug of infinite coffee XD and then looking at the confirmed pairing of the dragon and the hacker. He watched as Issei threw flaming punches and Olivia used her weapons while teleporting with devices she threw to the ground. And what do you think of them? In my opinion, they complement each other well, Ozpin said, and Glinda saw her scroll as Issei covered Olivia's back while she did the same for Issei. HMPH, although he's a cheeky boy, he's outstanding. I say that because you yourself chose him along with Miss Rose, Glinda said seriously. I suppose only time will tell, Ozpin said mysteriously, without elaborating further. If you say so, at the rate everyone's going, they should be at the temple in a few minutes, Glinda said, walking away, but stopped to ask something. Speaking of which, what did you use as relics this year? She asked, but saw that Ozpin didn't answer. Professor Ozpin. She called, but the man was more engrossed in watching the teams. But RW. Little Red Riding Hood and Snow White were lost. RWBY sat on the floor while Weiss moved from left to right. I'm sure it's this way, Weiss said, going to the right to backtrack. I mean this way. It's definitely this way. She said, turning back and going to the left. RWBY just watched her, bored, as Weiss stood in front of her and let out a sigh. Well, it's official, we're lost, Weiss said in defeat. RWBY just got up from where she was on the ground. I've been telling you that for the last 15 minutes, but you weren't listening, the dark-haired girl complained, and Weiss just sighed in defeat. Okay, fine, we're lost, what do we do now? Weiss asked, already wanting to get out of this shitty forest. Let's keep walking towards RWBY said, looking at a watch in her hand that served as a sort of compass. Over there, I think it's around there probably, RWBY said, not entirely sure of what she was saying. Well, we have no other choice, Weiss said wearily, and they both went where RWBY pointed. But the blonde and the brunette arrived at the place quickly since it was Blake who guided them, otherwise they would have been lost. We're finally here, I was getting bored there, Yang complained. We'd better hurry, Blake said, and they both went down the hill to approach the temple. When they looked closely, there were several pillars with chess pieces of different colors. Chess pieces? Blake asked, a little puzzled. Some are missing, Yang said, noticing the missing pieces. That means we're not the first, she added, looking around the place more closely. It's better to choose one, Blake said, looking at which one to take. But JP, Jean, and Purr had arrived in front of a cave. Evidently not the place they should be going. Do you think this is the place? I mean, it's all creepy and dark, Jean said, suspicious of the place. We have to find out, said Purr, so they both entered the cave, Jean lighting a torch with a log that was there, unaware of the little surprise that awaited them inside. But Issei and Olivia, they had already found Makoto and Mei who were behind some grims turned into ice sculptures. Wow, what ugly things, haha. Well, girls, we have to go to a temple, but I honestly don't know where it is, Issei said when Olivia spoke. I've already secured that, she said, showing her custom scroll, which was dark purple with a small skull in the middle. I accessed beacon systems and took a map of this forest, so by mapping our current position, we can find out where that blessed temple is, said the group's hacker. I don't know what we would do without your brilliance, Olivia. Makoto said. Seriously, you always help us with these kinds of things, Mei said. Good job, Olivia. You're always a lifesaver in these situations when I can't fly, said Issei, patting Olivia's head, which swelled with pride. Alright, since you know where it is, lead the way, Issei said, but then a loud crash was heard nearby. Damn it, just what I needed, the brunette complained when he saw the Grim emerge. Well, we've got our transport now, and with that, he launched himself at the Grim. But Blake and Yang. The blonde was looking at which piece to take until she saw one that interested her. How about a small pine tree? He said, holding the yellow horse piece in his hand. Sure, Blake said. They both approached each other. It wasn't that difficult, Yang said. Well, it's not like this place is very hard to find, Blake explained. Then. Ah. The damsel in distress. Yang exclaimed after hearing the distinctly female scream. Blake, did you hear that? She asked her fellow Fronis, who was staring intently in the direction the scream had come from. What do we do, she asked when. Why it was RWBY who was falling from the sky. How did that happen? Well, let's go back a few minutes. RWBY, Weiss shouted. I told you this was a terrible idea. She yelled scoldingly. It's okay, stop worrying. RWBY shouted back. I'm beyond worried. Weiss shouted. In a good way? RWBY asked. What do you mean, in a good way? It's obvious it's in a bad way. A really bad one. Weiss shouted. Well, why don't we just jump in? RWBY asked. You're crazy. How could you even think of such an idea? But RWBY threw herself down. You're an idiot. Weiss shouted in annoyance as she continued to cling on. So what happened, you might still be wondering. Well, RWBY had a pretty crazy idea. She made herself and Weiss cling to the legs of a Nevermore, a freaking Nevermore, which is why RWBY was falling from the sky. Returning to normal. Blake, did you hear that? That we should. Yang stopped when he saw Blake pointing at the sky. Watch out. Little Red Riding Hood screamed as she was in freefall when in slow motion, poor Jean was seen colliding with RWBY and then both crashing into a tree. Did your sister just fall from the sky? Blake asked. Yang couldn't answer when. Roar. An Ursa appeared from the side in the distance, but the strange thing is that it seemed to want to get rid of something until something pink exploded behind it. Yeehaw. Was the cheerful Nora Valkyrie who appeared from behind the recently deceased Ursa. Ah, it's broken, she pouted sadly. She quickly reappeared over the fallen Ursa's neck as if checking what went wrong. Ooh, she sighed, as a dizzy Lyran appeared from behind the Ursa. Nora. Please never do that again, never, the dark-haired girl with a pink streak said between breaths. But when she looked, Nora had already disappeared. Ooh. Said Nora in front of one of the altars, looking at a golden tower and happily grabbing it. I am the queen of the castle, I am the queen of the castle, Nora sang. Nora. Rin shouted in annoyance. Haha, I'm coming, Rin, Nora said, giving a military salute before starting to hop along. Hopping, 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 hopping XD. Did that girl just arrive riding in on an Ursa? Blake asked, surprised. Aye. But Yang was interrupted again when Purr arrived, escaping from a damn Deathstalker who was responsible for sending Jean flying. RWBY had already climbed down the tree, followed by Jean. RWBY? Yang asked, seeing her little sister was alright. Yang? RWBY exclaimed happily, and they were about to give each other a high five when. Nora? Nora interrupted cheerfully between the two. Did she run all the way here with a Deathstalker chasing her? Blake asked, arms crossed, while Nora beside her moved in a cute way with a little smile. And Yang was about to explode with annoyance. I can't take it anymore. Can everyone calm down for 2 seconds before another crazy thing happens? Yang shouted angrily, her eyes red and her hair literally on fire. Then Rin arrived where the four of them were and suddenly. Is it just me, or is the earth shaking? RWBY asked. It's not your idea, the earth is shaking, said Rin, feeling the vibrations that the earth was giving off at that moment. What the hell is going on now? Yang asked. Brah. It was the loud roar that was felt in the place when Issei and his 3 companions appeared riding on a large Grim. What the hell is this thing? Blake, RWBY, Yang, and Rin shouted in alarm. Great, I want to get on one of those. Nora exclaimed excitedly as she watched a quartet approaching on the Grim. Everything in the Emerald Forest was spiraling out of control, but this was just a small taste of what was to come with Issei nearby. Outside Vale. In a pretty cabin in the distance of Vale, on the porch of said cabin a beautiful woman with blonde hair was sitting drinking a cup of tea, while in a crystal sphere she observed everything that was happening in the Emerald Forest. She smiled amusedly seeing all the shocked girls watching Issei about that strange Grim. Ozpin must be having a great time watching all this, the woman said, smiling as she placed her teacup on a small table beside her. I hope Cinder and the others can at least enjoy themselves with him, she added, then focused on the smiling Issei and smiled back. Haha, everything's going well for now. She then noticed a figure approaching in the distance. It's about time he arrived, she said, rising from her chair to greet her guest. Walking calmly, a woman with long, wavy crimson hair, like a river of burning fire, small black horns protruding from the front of her head, wore a mask that covered her eyes, had pale skin and a good figure, wore a black suit with some red parts and a skirt to a few centimeters above her knees, sheathed a black katana which she held in her left hand. She walked calmly until she was in front of the blonde woman and smiled gently with that beautiful face. I'm sorry for the delay, I had to take care of some things before coming here, the Redeed said to the blonde. No problem, everything went as it should. The blonde asked. Of course, Ice has been helping us a lot in White Fang, he's even been able to stop people from discriminating against Franus. Since we met him, everything has changed for the better, and now Franus are treated equally, said the Redeed with a beautiful smile, as she remembered the one who always helps her people. Well, I'll help you too, but that's good, now it has to continue like this, since we still don't know who's behind these attacks that started last night, the blonde said seriously. Don't worry, Sienna and I are mobilizing our best trackers to find those who are causing a ruckus since that psychopath was released, said the Redeed. That's good to hear, Athena, but for the moment, wouldn't you like some tea or something to drink? I mean, you must be a little tired from that trip, so we can enjoy what your beloved hero is doing in Beacon, offered the blonde, making Athena Taurus, one of the leaders of White Fang, blush at the word beloved. Water is fine, said the blushing woman, not denying that she was loved. Fufufu, that expression is cute, who would have thought that the tough Athena Taurus, the one who is feared for being cold and even rude, blushes like a schoolgirl when she hears a boy's name, the blonde teased, making Athena blush to the point that her face and hair matched. Silence. You must be quiet, Salem. It's not my fault I love someone like him. I shouted, ashamed. And you don't deny it, that's good, knowing what you want, but you know there's a lot of competition, you know. Said the one now known as Salem, smiling at the redeemed sincerity. Sienna, Ilia, her 3 friends, even Blake, as if I didn't know what I was up against, but that competition is pointless because of the result, although it's good to compete, said Athena, now calm, sitting down in a chair that Salem made appear next to a pitcher of water and a glass, which he filled and passed to Athena. Thank you, she said, and began to drink the liquid. Haha, you are interesting, the blonde smiled radiantly as she transformed into a white-haired woman with pale skin and black veins, changing her clothes to black ones that contrasted with her white skin. I still haven't gotten used to that, Athena said, looking at Salem, who let out a tired sigh. Well, I don't possess many of my old powers anymore, so maintaining that illusion about me for too long tires me out, Salem said, making the crystal ball show all the chaos that was happening at the initiation test for Beacon. Your past is still a mystery, Athena said, looking into the crystal sphere. And it will continue to be so until it is necessary, since it is not yet the time to tell, but it soon will be, Salem told her, and Athena nodded. This world has secrets, Salem being one of them, but that's only the beginning as there are still more things that this world will witness. End of chapter 3. Let me know in the comments below if you guys want the next part. Also check out my other video that has been shown and left. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video please like and share this video. And have a fantastic day. Bye.